Rahul, are you there?
Yes, sir. Hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
So we'll be starting around 3 o'clock, right?
Yes, we'll be starting at 3, exactly at 3.
Okay.
All right, sir. Sir, Dr. Kamble will be joining in 2 minutes, and we'll start on time.
Okay, great.
All right, sir. We are 2 minutes to 3. I'll exactly start at 3.
Okay, perfect.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, we have gathered here today for the second CII Data Center Blueprint Virtual Summit. After the first day's packed session on data center digital infrastructure and very insightful discussions on the global trends in data centers, we are here for the second day of the summit, and we'll be starting the summit with address by Mr. Sharat Sanghi. He's the co-chair for CII Data Center Forum and CEO Global Data Centers and Cloud Infrastructure India. So I will like to welcome Mr. Sanghi to give the address and start the session for today. Thank you, sir. It's all yours.
Thank you, Rahul. Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Harshdeep Kamble, Secretary, Small and Medium Industries and Development Commissioner of Industries, Government of Maharashtra. My industry colleagues, esteemed dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to welcome all of you on the second day of the CII Data Center Blueprint Summit 2020. On behalf of CII Western Region, I welcome you to this illustrious gathering of data center professionals. I hope yesterday's panel discussions provided you an insight of how the data center industry is evolving in India and what it takes to sustain it. There were some interesting conversations yesterday where the private sector and the government had some very interesting talks about how data centers can be incentivized, or rather ease of doing business can be made possible for issues pertaining to land, power, connectivity, and skills. There was also an interesting discussion on collaborative digital infrastructure, which covered the different angles of requirements and expectation, both from the DC service providers and also from the end users. We also gained an insight from John Eland on how global outlook for data centers looks and how that might play out in India in the future. And we also gained a very good insight from Nick Tanzi on how interconnect data centers and edge computing will develop in the country. As we step into the second day of the summit, we will again have some interesting conversations which will not only provide you information on the growing impact of data centers in the currently digital driven society, but will also help you understand the importance of creating sustainable digital infrastructure, which is vital for several data driven businesses. I will be having an interesting post Dr. Kamble's address. I'll also be having an interesting fireside chat with Karan Bajwa of Google and Rajesh Jani of Dell, where they will talk about the digital infrastructure inside data centers pertaining to cloud, network storage, and compute, all software defined, right? So, our sincere thanks uh, go out to each one of you from the industry for uh, um, our partners, the media, for your participation and interaction. And thank you for gracing this occasion with your presence. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Kamble, Secretary, Small and Medium Enterprises, Small and Medium Industries, and Development Commissioner Industries for Government of Maharashtra, for his address on data center policy reforms. It is an honor to welcome Dr. Kamble. Over to you, Dr. Kamble.
So Dr. Kamble is logging in. I'm just coordinating with his office. So we'll
Okay.
wait for he'll come in. So if you want to share
Yeah, no problem. So, we can, I can just give a quick background of the speakers, post this, what we're going to discuss on digital infrastructure till Dr. Kamble joins in. So, with Google and Dell, what we'll be discussing is the infrastructure inside data centers, which pertains mostly to software-defined storage, compute, and network. We'll talk about how India is still in its initial stage of cloud deployment and how that will pan out over the years. We will talk about the security issues in cloud, for example, and how that is being overcome. We'll talk about the skill sets required to manage the digital infrastructure in data centers. We'll talk about the collaboration that Dell and Google are doing. And we'll also talk about the hybrid cloud approach that enterprises are taking. So that is the conversation that we'll have with both Dell and Google post the discussion with with Dr. Kamble. Is Dr. Kamble in or not yet? Rahul, is Dr. Kamble in?
Yes, sir. I'm just connecting with him. Give me 1 minute, huh? 1 minute.
I'll reintroduce him once he joins.
Sure, sir. Sir, Dr. Kamble has joined. He is on the delegate side. We are just taking him on the panel. He'll be here in next 30, 40 seconds. So it's taking some time. We are going to play a video so that once he joins, we'll stop and we'll start again.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, he'll take less than 2 minutes. Yeah.
Sure.
Dr. Kamble has joined, please.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, Dr. Kamble. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Dr. Harshdeep Kamble, Secretary, Small and Medium Enterprises and Development Commissioner, Industries for Government of Maharashtra on behalf of CII. Without further ado, I'd like him to address the audience regarding data center policy reforms. Over to you, Dr. Kamble.
So you have to. Dr. Kamble is on mute.
Yeah, Dr. Kamble, you need to unmute yourself.
Right. I will.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So am I audible now?
Yes, very clear.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you, CII, for organizing such a wonderful webinar, actually. And it is on a very, very interesting topic. So, that is data center. And as you are aware, that during this difficult times of Corona lockdown, one sector that is doing not as bad as others actually, and it is showing the way, that is the IT sector. And of course, pharma sector is another one where because of this COVID now, everybody is worried about their health issues. And all of us are also, of course, worried. And therefore, health sector, pharma industry is also doing good. But as I said, that this is a difficult times. But even in difficult times, we are seeing some kind of, as they say, that green shoot recovery is happening around. And one thing about, before I talk about data center, with one thing which I spoke in like 2 months before, also in one webinar, I was telling that India's economy is also based on, how the monsoons take place in India, because then we still our economy still large part of it depends on how does monsoon and agriculture take in that particular region happens in India. And this year it is good news that monsoon is going to be good, and agriculture production, when other countries are looking at their agriculture reduction in their agriculture production, India is looking at higher output in the agriculture produce. So that is one very good thing. Another very good and important thing which came to my notice, and of course of everybody's notice, is that there is one company, Reliance Jio, which has received a lot of investment from abroad. So they are able to garner somewhere around 15 to 16 billion dollars, and they also are planning the major into telecom. But then the whole basis of all this is, even Facebook, other companies have also invested. Main basis of this is then data. So data has become a kind of data mining has become kind of a very, very important feature, significant feature. Of course, we were talking about data policies, data centers earlier to Corona also, but in this Corona times, use of IT has been quite tremendous, and then consumption of data has been tremendous. Let it be IT sector or let it be home entertainment also. The data being consumed is very, very huge now. And we had actually, Maharashtra had thought about it earlier also, and then we made a kind of a new policy document about Maharashtra's industrial policy. Therein we have particularly mentioned about data centers, data parks. Very recently, you must be aware that many of you must be aware that some of the Twitter accounts of very, very big guys, like including Barack Obama, then a guy from the one who owns that Amazon, that is Mr. Bezos. So there, even Microsoft earlier owner also. So their accounts were also hacked, and then suddenly again data mining, data privacy came into picture, and then it was discussed and debated upon. So government of India, talking about the policy perspectives, government of India is also very keen to come out with a data policy, the draft of which is shared to the stakeholders, and therein data security, data privacy is like a kind of everybody's concern nowadays. And if you remember during this other cards also, there was a lot of discussions on this, and then government was and is in the mindset that the data of every individual, that is in of every Indian, needs to be protected and their privacy is to be maintained. So therefore, that idea of having the data of one country, like of India, only in India, and then analysis of that should also be, it should be stored in India, and then analysis of that also should be done in India. So this was a thought process of the government, and of course there are positive pros and cons, and there are ones who are supporting this, there are ones who don't support this. But having said that, what comes to a very forefront is importance of this data, and their data storage. So the capacity which we built in data centers has become a kind of a prime importance now. Another, I think, which is supporting this is these policies on data center. Another thing that is supporting is that real estate, we are finding that they are also not doing well. So they also want to shift to this kind of businesses, of course. But IT is a very, or data centers for that matter, is a very professional kind of approach, professional service. That too also at excellent level you have to give. So considering all these new situations, and as I said that earlier also, we were looking at data policy, how to tweak our data policy. So our ITS policy, of course, mentions about data centers. And also we are one state which Maharashtra gives a lot of incentives for data centers. But what we have done is that anybody who invests around 1,500 crores in his data center, he is the one who gets these benefits. And then there are benefits which follow are like you get extra FSI and very low interest rate. And then normally our incentive policies are basically for manufacturing sector. But as I said, that data mining, data centers, data itself is data analysis itself is going to be a very, very big game changer. So therefore, although it is a service sector, government of Maharashtra has agreed for this kind of incentive. Now, we are adding further to it. So this should be a good news for everybody that as we have mentioned in our the new industrial policy, there we have particularly mentioned about, if you look at our new industrial policy, our 8.4 section mentions particularly about these data centers and how we are going to support it. So our plan is very soon government of Maharashtra, of course, would be coming out with a new policy also on this data center. We of course have one policy for a data center where we promote, but we want that mega data center park should be developed in Maharashtra. As of now also, Maharashtra corners around 41% of the total data storage spaces in the country. But then we are not looking only at the country. We want that Mumbai has to be a global hub, kind of a global hub for this data center parks, and therefore we are coming out with this new policy. And yesterday we are here only there was session about MIDC also, so they are also coming out with their own huge data, their huge area which would be reserved near Mumbai, which would be reserved for data park. So that is one very good advantage which anybody would have. Adding to it further, what we are now proposing, it's in the final stage actually almost. So what we are now proposing is further incentivizing this data park. So earlier, only a single person who was supposed to, develop this park. So now we would also be giving benefits of there are other although it is in service sector, other benefits would also follow. I can share one or two benefits, important benefits with you. One is that earlier whatever investment that was calculated as what we say as a fixed capital investment. So this fixed capital investment includes it included the machinery that you brought in for these data centers. So what we are also planning that if there are some very, very big data center parks which are coming in, so we are also planning if some part of the service tax that is being paid to you, to the developer, through their consumers, if we can reimburse even that. So that is one idea which is floating around. So that we are trying to include in our new industrial policy. So that means we don't normally return the service tax that is being paid to the government, but here we will try to give this service tax also back to you. So that is one. Second, which we are looking at is power. Of course, in Maharashtra is little higher side. So we are also promoting, and everybody of you, those who are into data centers, so they know that everybody is trying to promote renewable energy, green energy for these data centers. So we are also trying to see that if we can give some kind of subsidy for energy consumption, because of course data centers, everybody knows that they are energy guzzlers. So we are also trying to see that it is eco-friendly, environment-friendly, and green power. To promote green power, we in our new policy we are also trying to see that if some subsidy to the tune of, let us say, at least 1 rupee per unit that is consumed by data centers, if that also could be paid back to the data centers, so that whatever investment they do, that investment they would be, maximum of that, we'll try to see that they get it back within a span of period. But we of course stagger our incentives on a year-on-year basis. So whatever investment you do, and again then we of course always keep one part of incentive with us, and that is with the permission of a cabinet subcommittee which is headed by Honorable Chief Minister. If there is some exceptionally very large investment, let us say like 10,000 crores in mega data center parks, so that kind of a huge investment, of course, even anything which falls into ultra mega project in the policy of Maharashtra, they of course would get much more benefits. But some huge investment, if there are very, very big data center parks coming up, then definitely we would consider giving further extra something more to such kind of units also. And this this is not like in 1 year's of time you have to invest everything into this data center parks, but gradually we give you around 7 years of time, and as I said that this number of years for the investment increase it could also increase based on kind of a investment. And as I said that we want to promote green energy, so subsidy on energy consumed.
May I ask all the people to be on mute so that Dr. Kamble can be heard, please? Thank you.
Yeah. So subsidy I was talking to you about on a power consumed, that is one thing. But in our this, if the investment is quite huge, so then we will also see to it that whatever you are investing into green energy, like if you are putting up a solar plant, then some part of that investment which you are doing in solar plant, so that also some part I am saying that also we will calculate for calculating your incentives. So it would be kind of a good mix of promoting data center parks, more the investment in data center park. Also, we'll also consider your solar energy park you are coming out with. That also some part of that investment. Also, we are planning for a reduction. No, kind of a subsidy that we would be giving for power that is being consumed. And we would also try to see that whatever GST you pay back, SGST that you pay, not only for plant and machinery, but also for the services you offer to your consumers, that also we are trying to pitch in, we are trying to see that how well we can fit it into our policy so that your benefits are maximized. But there is one catch which I would like to tell here, and that catch is we would be giving these benefits only to first 5 of the biggest, first 5 of big data center parks. Of course, if the response is good, then we will see if we can increase that number. But as of now, our policy would be limited to this, because in our outgo, we are fearing would be much more, because all this would be given on a gross basis, not on net basis. So the outgo from government side is also more. But as I said, that it is our wish, it is our desire of the government that Mumbai should become a global center for these data centers, data center parks, and also for what we are looking for is also that data analysis should also be developed here. Also that big companies have their offices here, because particularly the objection that is being raised every time is that these data centers parks do not are not so big employment generators. So therefore, we would be more interested in those companies that they set up their data center parks here, they have their data centers here, and also other services following that, that is data analysis, also data storage also is there, being done in India only. So such kind of a company we would be promoting, and very soon, let me say that within 2 months of time, maximum 2 months of a time, this policy also we would be proposing, and it would in our initial discussion, for which I got a lot of inputs from all those data centers which are already there in Mumbai. I got a lot of inputs from them, and that is how we would be able to come out with this kind of policy. I think this is one, and I personally feel that ease of doing business is also one thing that needs to be tackled along with the financial incentives. So non-financial incentives in terms of ease of doing business would also be a package which would follow for these data centers. We have already planned for issuing Mahaparvana for those companies whose investment is above certain level of in terms of money, or in terms of rupees, or in terms of dollar. So certain amount of investment would be given kind of a VIP treatment, and we will have a separate cell for permission. So with Mahaparvana permission, you can go ahead even with your construction without waiting for any kind of a permission from any department. You would get certainly time limit also, in which then you can submit your various applications. So that kind of a Mahaparvana would also be offered to all these data center parks, data center developers, data center companies. And so financial incentives and non-financial incentive in terms of ease of doing business, a separate cell of course would be created in Maitri for this, and through that we would be able to, I think, coordinate anybody who can, who wishes to invest in Maharashtra, particularly in the data center park. So that is what policy initiatives we are looking at, and which would be, let me tell you here, that it would be attractive, much more attractive than any state in Maharashtra, any state in India. And why the whole aim of ours, although the intersea cables, sea cables, they do lie in New Bombay, so that is one advantage. But Mumbai also has a lot of IT professionals and fantastic fantastic environment for IT kind of a businesses. Mumbai, Pune is very close by also. So that taking that advantage, we want to develop New Bombay as a global hub for data center parks. So that is why we would be very soon bringing out this policy. We of course have earlier policy, but then we will be improvising very soon on that. So that is what I wanted to just tell you this news in this very good conference webinar that has been arranged by CII. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Kamble, for giving us the insights on the proposed policy. We had a very good session yesterday also with MIDC CEO, and he talked about how you do the ease of doing business. So these are all good things for all the industry, the entire industry here gathered who are setting up data centers. Today, Bombay is already the largest, and we said about 40% of the data center business already happens in Bombay, but to become the largest in Asia, or the largest, one of the largest in the world. Today, India is the sixth largest, and I think with all these incentives, we can grow much faster. So thank you so much for your talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'll move on to the next session. We have, it's a very interesting session on digital infrastructure. I'd like to, before I begin, I'd like to introduce two gentlemen for this session. The first is Mr. Karan Bajwa, who's the Managing Director of Google Cloud India. Karan Bajwa joined Google in March 2020 and is responsible for driving all revenue and go-to-market operations for Google Cloud's extensive solution portfolio that includes the GCP, or the Google Cloud Platform, G Suite, and he's also responsible for Google Cloud's field sales, partner and customer engineering organizations in India, and he's also responsible for engaging the developer ecosystem and India-based global system integrators, or GSIs. A senior leader with over 3 decades of leadership experience, Karan joined Google Cloud from IBM, where he served as Managing Director for India and South Asia. Prior to IBM, he worked with Microsoft for 9 years, his last role being the managing director for the company's operations in India. He has also worked with Cisco Systems in both in India and Singapore. So welcome, Karan. It's a pleasure to have you. On behalf of CII, I'd like to welcome you to this panel.
Thank you, Sharad.
Thank you. Has Rajesh Jani joined? Yeah, Rajesh is here. Yeah, I can see him. So the next person on our fireside chat is Mr. Rajesh Jani, who's Senior Vice President Global Alliances, Dell Technologies. He works closely with our current leaders to build a true alliances community in India across the entire organization. As the first ever senior executive based in India for Dell Global Alliances, Rajesh spearheads both the general governance across all GSI partners in India. Rajesh has been with the company for over a dozen years, and his most recent assignment was as President and Managing Director of the Enterprise Business in India. In his previous role, he was responsible for accelerating Dell EMC's growth in India and enhancing relationships with all the partners and alliances. An ICT industry veteran with over 35 years of experience, Rajesh has managed and led companies to leadership positions across diverse business segments, including IT, sales and marketing, services, channels, and enterprise. He has spent a total of 7 years with EMC. Prior to his current position, Rajesh has held several leadership roles in EMC, both in India and SAARC, Vice President, Enterprise Business India and SAARC, Head of Channels, and Vice President for Northeastern Bangladesh Business, amongst others. He started his career with HCL and held a number of senior management positions in NetApp, HP, Compaq, and Wipro. So thank you, Rajesh and Karan, for joining us today. I welcome you on behalf of CII. As you know, that we're going to focus on digital infrastructure. So the format is it's like a fireside chat. I will ask you both questions one by one, some common questions, and you can feel free, even if I ask Karan a question, if Rajesh wants to add something or vice versa, that's fine. So I'll begin with Karan. Okay. So India is still in its initial stage of mass cloud adoption. While most IT and companies have a cloud-first policies, however, the poor definition of compliance and security inhibits adoption of cloud in several organizations. How is Google doing? What is Google doing to overcome this? And what are all your innovations in this space? Name 3 standout use cases that you feel will drive cloud adoption in the coming days in India.
Okay, thank you, Sharad. Thank you very much for first inviting me, and good to be with Rajesh. I clearly see that I'm underdressed for the occasion relative to
I can take it out.
but I'll go ahead. Look, here, your question's underlying point is about trust. And in my view, Sharad, trust is created through transparency and not just technology. Traditionally, organizations have looked to the public cloud for things like cost savings, for starters, or to augment private data center capacity. Many organizations see the move to cloud as something that creates risk and makes them less secure. On the contrary, at Google, we think of the opposite actually. We believe that moving to the cloud can actually help organizations improve their security, the risk posture, and that we can work with them to make all of that happen. Just from a global standpoint, the secure global platform that is built to run applications on the Google Cloud, to applications that collaborate in a very secure environment, protection of data with our collaboration suite, to a single console to easily manage users, devices, apps, to endpoints, etc. It's a pretty exhaustive end-to-end proposition that we bring to the table. As a pioneer, Google fully understands the security implications of the cloud. In fact, our cloud services are designed to, I believe, deliver better security than many traditional on-premise solutions. We actually make security a priority to protect our own operations. As you know, that bulk of our services run on the same infrastructure that we make available to our customers, and hence your organization can actually directly benefit from those protections. I'll just give you an example, Sharad, from the very recent past. Google reported vulnerabilities such as Spectre and Meltdown, which had a very wide impact across industries. But on the same breath, Google was one of the first public cloud platforms to roll out fixes in our infrastructure to actually overcome these vulnerabilities with zero impact to customers. So we focus on security, protection of data as a primary design criteria in that sense. It's prioritized in the way we handle customer data, And it's the cornerstone of our account controls, compliance audits, and the certifications we offer. Also, in a day and age, Sharad, where data centers are being logically extended to the cloud, we support a very strong partner ecosystem with the likes of Cisco, F5, Juniper, Palo Alto, etc., to create a very familiar security parameters even on the cloud.
Dell too.
But Dell as well, of course. Yes, thank you for reminding. I was just giving a sample list in that sense. And in terms of your question about three areas, I believe the three areas that will drive greater cloud adoption as a result will be number one, productivity. It's going to reimagine the way teams work. Number two, agility. It's going to reimagine how you migrate and manage applications and infrastructure in a modernized world. And number three, about democratizing data insights, reimagining how decisions are made and empowering the end user. Those are three use cases in my view. Sharath, back to you.
Fabulous. What a great insight. Now over to Rajesh. So Rajesh, in the last few years, if you look at the way digital infrastructure has been consumed, whether it's storage, compute, network, there has been a certain rate of adoption. Obviously, we've had this crisis now. Do you think, what is your outlook, not only for the current year, but also for the future in terms of consumption of digital infrastructure going forward?
So before I start, so thank you, Sharad. Am I audible? I just want to check.
Yeah, very clear. Very clear.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me. And Karan, I'm overdressed because this is one opportunity after a long time that I got to get out of t-shirts and get into a jacket. So don't steal that thunder from me. Right? It's been a few months that we have been at home working like that. So, okay. So, Sharad, as you said, and while historically there have been inhibitions for enterprises to go onto cloud, but I think current period has got us into something called enforced innovation. I mean, working from home has become a reality. Learning and education has moved online. So there is probably, it has forced organizations to get onto a cloud-based kind of an architecture to deliver the experience that we have, that they have been wanting. So suddenly, leaders are looking at the efficacy of employees working from home. They're also thinking long-term, will they come back? Does everyone need to come back to office premises? Right? Learning and education, as I said, the way it has moved swiftly online. Had we tried it as a policy initiative, it would have taken probably a few decades to go. Suddenly it has moved online. And there is an opportunity now for us to see, is there a better way, or is this better for India to take this learning and education to interior parts of India, where we've always had scarcity of resources or teachers or other things. So various things are changing. I think next 2 years have forced upon, as I said, an accelerated innovation on the digital infrastructure space. So the expectations from technology are all the more high. So every user, every customer now is thinking, can I run my any application on any device from anywhere on any cloud? So I think the expectations from technology are far higher. And therefore, I believe the rate of adoption of technology and digital transformation is going to accelerate a lot. And it will have to be, as you said, supported by the infrastructure needs underlying it.
Super. So that's great news for all of us. Next question to Karan is, Karan, we are seeing many enterprises and even mid-market firms have workloads on more than one cloud provider. So what is your perspective, on this, evolution of what we call as multi-cloud? Why is it that organizations are choosing more than one cloud, and how do you see this evolving going forward?
Sharad, you and I have been talking about this for so many months now, and I firmly believe that multi-cloud is the future. But it's also worth noting that the term multi-cloud can mean different things to different people. For some customers, multi-cloud just is leveraging multiple public clouds at the same time, while others refer to it as using a public cloud in conjunction with traditional non-cloud systems. And while some others still mean multiple public clouds for different workloads at the same time. All these are viable and correct representations. Really depends on how you're looking at it. But let's think about why customers adopt multi-cloud strategies. I think it's primarily an attempt to increase agility, minimize vendor lock-in. I think in enterprises' mind, vendor lock-in has always placed a very strong it has a strong influence in their decision making. In the on-premise world, they've always been thinking about vendor lock-in. They saw cloud as an opportunity. Now they're very, very clear. They want to make sure there is no vendor lock-in that happens. So proprietary nature of technologies, they want to stay away. And yet take best advantage of best-in-breed solutions on one versus the other, cost efficiencies, and increase flexibility through choice. Those are the reasons I believe. And again, this is a conversation we've been having. We've been at the forefront of this innovation with what we could now call as our Anthos platform, which is really a modern applications platform for both hybrid and multi-cloud environments. When we talk to customers with very extensive on-premise investments, they tell us that they want to take advantage of the cloud scalability, the innovative services, the geographic scope, but they're equally worried about getting locked in with the wrong provider. Why is it they ask? That they can still, why the question really they ask is, why can't I write once and run anywhere? And that is really where we've been deeply working with our platforms to let enterprises run applications unmodified on existing on-premise hardware as well as on other public clouds. We've not stopped there. Actually, if you just look back a few days in our recently ongoing global virtual summit now, it used to be a physical one, now it's a virtual one. We recently announced a very interesting capability where we are extending analytics to an enterprise data and other public clouds with things like BigQuery Omni. And it's again a very simple, flexible, multi-cloud analytics solution, which is powered by the same platform Anthos that enables you to analyze data from a single pane of glass across data sets in, be it Google Cloud, across AWS, and now coming soon on Azure as well. These are the kind of innovations that reflect many values that deeply resonate with us, including organizing information to its maximum utility, using the innovation velocity, if you will, and the freedom of open source software, which is again a key principle to how we think about it, and giving customers maximum access and decision making power. What we are seeing is increasing momentum with both customers and partners to use more kinds of multi-cloud services, and we'll continue having future additions and improvements to enhance the platforms in really an open and a multi-cloud developer environment. If I look across customers, unquestionable, most customers, be it digital natives, traditional enterprises, are more and more moving towards a multi-cloud environment to get the best that they can. And how we facilitate is providing them the freedom of choice, if you will.
Karan, can I ask you one follow-up question on that?
Sure.
So right now you're absolutely right. We're seeing this multi-cloud happening, but do you think this will remain, or maybe at some point in time in future they will realize that it makes that they get better volume discounts with one player and they start selecting one of the multiple players that they use, or you think that this will remain the same way in the future as well?
My view, and I'm very strongly convicted that it is going to be a multi-cloud environment. Customers have gone over the whole cost chasm, if you will, in terms of choosing one provider versus the other, and yet there will be cost optimization. And cost optimization can be done in very crude ways like pricing, or in very efficient ways like architecturally addressing that, and how do you, in for example, our case, how do we use efficiently PVMs, etc. So I guess there are many ways to cut the cost angle, but it's about technology, and it's about making sure the customers are able to use the best of breed, that is, the capability is available. And as a public cloud provider, it is our responsibility to make sure we allow customers that freedom and not sort of have a situation where somebody's locked in.
Excellent, thank you. Rajesh, for you, since the topic is digital infrastructure, and you are one of the the forefronts of digital infrastructure technology, right? Whether it's storage, whether it's compute, whether it's network, or whether it's the software like VMware, right? So, what are some of the innovations that Dell is doing in this space? Maybe you could highlight some of them for the audience.
Sure. And I think Karan spoke about the three key fundamentals that customers are going to cloud for, right? Productivity, agility, and democratizing through data, what is happening there, right? And therefore, the underlying infrastructure has to be lockstep with those requirements. And we believe that infrastructure is the digital foundation for delivering what is cloud-like, because we believe cloud is an operating model, not a destination per se. So as long as we can provide an experience which is cloud-like, on-premise, off-premise, hybrid, multi-cloud. That's what customers are looking at. They're looking at a single tool set to manage the underlying infrastructure. And therefore, some of the design principles we adopt and adapt in our infrastructure designs are A, they are data centric. That is, any workload, any kind of scale up, scale out, they are intelligent, they are adaptable. The second, as I said, they are intelligent. That means the infrastructure should be able to ease the deployment for an administrator or a cloud deployer or anybody else. It should require an engineering PhD to deploy where do I and create all those earlier days that we used to do. It has to be adaptable, that it has to be container based. It should allow modern applications to run as well as traditional applications to run as well. It should become an application rewrite all over. Most importantly, it should have security built in, right? It cannot be a bolt on. And these are 3-4 things that we look at: data centric, intelligent platform, adaptable architecture, and security built in. And basis last few weeks, we have gone ahead and refreshed our entire mid-range storage, data protection, our own scale out storage, and I'll speak about the partnership with Google in a bit, our own VMware single pane of glass management, and our own Dell Technology Cloud services that we offer. So overall, the focus on infrastructure has been to make sure it is the digital foundation and it provides and enables a cloud-like experience for all of the customers as well. HCI, as we spoke earlier, has played a key part in the initial phases. It's now become mainstream. Hybrid converged infrastructure is the mainstream thing.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, Karan, next question to you. As skills needed to manage cloud infrastructure become more advanced, right? People have to have expertise in various cloud technologies, in Anthos, and they're supporting Google Cloud, and all so many different cloud technologies, right? They become more and more complex. How can managed services help accelerate the cloud journey for a business?
Actually, contrary to what some people think, I think services applies even more in a cloud environment. If you just move beyond the opportunistic or very tactical approaches to public cloud adoption, it actually increases the likelihood of drawing upon a much broader range of managed services provider capabilities. Both professional services as well as managed services are very essential in my view for a cloud adoption. And of course, if you look at professional services, that is particularly for when you are going for transformative engagements, when it's just not just about lift or shift, or it is way beyond lift and shift. Professional services play a much important role. I think enterprises use managed services providers to really help build, improve efficiency, think about reducing risks in cloud adoption. They also use them to reduce time to market, which is very important in these migrations, including helping with innovation, etc. My view personally, strong services expertise, and again, this is one conversation we've been constantly having about enhancing services expertise across in the ecosystem, I think is one of the most important factors in determining an appropriate provider. So either it's the provider alone providing it, or is the provider plus the partner, which is more the case in our side, in our ecosystem. So it's really important. If you look at any suitable, if you look at a classic definition of a managed services provider for public cloud, can actually help starting from solution design, migration of workloads efficiently, and really achieve the primary purpose why customers do this, which is to, beyond lift and shift, it is to really achieve a cloud-enabled transformation. Also, accelerating the maturity of a cloud services delivery by using automation tools, for example, to commence, scale, and optimize different aspects of your operations. Really balancing the value brought by the MSP with the potential exit scenario requirements and avoiding MSP lock-ins. Again, that's an important point because of these dependencies is the right way forward for enterprises who have decided on a cloud-first strategy. So I believe that getting the right provider, getting the right services capability is as important as a decision on the cloud platform as well.
Excellent.
Maybe, Sharad, with your permission, maybe I want to add on to what Karan said. Having worked with, last 1.5 years, my role has been working with these partners, largely dependent on services globally, And I can add to what Karan says. If you look at NASSCOM report itself, IAS ACVs in September, they reported, have doubled year over year. That means most of the large IT software companies are winning projects globally, which are around transforming customers from a locally proprietary architecture to cloud and cloud-like on hybrid kind of a thing. So the services have a very large play for partners. We see a similar thing happening with our partners as well. The transformational initiative of transforming from legacy application, legacy hardware to cloud-ready infrastructure and cloud is driving a lot of services for the partners that we work with, including NTT.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you. So now, Rajesh, going to you, and I am sure Karan will also respond to this. How is Dell collaborating with Google in the area of digital infrastructure and innovation?
Very good. So I'll first talk about what is our strategy around cloud. So Dell Technology Cloud combines the power of VMware and Dell Technology infrastructure to provide a consistent operating model, basically consistent infrastructure, consistent operation, consistent services, right? And that's what we believe in, the fact that it's an ecosystem play. And what it does is it creates a hybrid cloud, which allows customers a single pane of glass to manage. So you can be connected to Azure, AWS, GCP, as we announced recently, and do that. With Google, it has gone one more step further. Today, Dell Technologies Cloud, 1FS for Google Cloud. It's a file storage services available on Google Cloud through a single management console called Google Cloud Console. And one can pay for it through Google Marketplace. So you could technically, Sharad, let's say you wanted to buy a file storage infrastructure from us. Instead of doing that, you could go to Google Cloud, to their marketplace, look for Dell Technologies Cloud 1FS for Google. It's available in the marketplace. It's what's important that it is provided, the services, the enterprise grade services are provided by us. So we ensure the enterprise grade services, the flexibility, agility, and everything of the commercial construct of the Google Cloud, and you could source it without having to deploy it on your premises. So that's the key thing that we have just launched. And we are pretty excited about what possibilities it brings. The fact is, file or the unstructured data is growing more than the structured data all across the world. And this is the power that we bring, current scene and everything.
Excellent.
And I'd like to just quickly add to that. I think he's given a wonderful example of how we are collaborating. You get the best of the capability from Dell and you interface with Google. Now, there's another very important aspect. So contrary to what most public cloud providers would want to like to see and believe that customers will rush to the public cloud, I would say the story is different. As I said earlier, there are customers who want to get the hyperscaler capabilities while they retain their workloads on premise for whatever reasons. And then again, the partnership with Dell, where we bring in the capability of the hybrid platform, the Anthos capability on premise, that is another aspect of the partnership that we are very bullish about with Dell as a partner.
Excellent. And also what we are doing is we're using the vCloud Health, which is their multi-cloud insight platform, to actually look at even managing Google Cloud. So, that's another area of interaction between the two. That's excellent. So another common question for both Rajesh and Karan. I'll start with Karan. Now, you know that the hybrid cloud, you just alluded to the hybrid cloud approach, right? Is truly attractive for enterprises in India. They already have existing investments. They want to, burst into the cloud, or for whatever, for multiple reasons. As you said, there could be some compliance requirement where they're not, let's say banking may not be very comfortable with putting everything on public cloud on day one. Maybe it'll evolve over a period of time. So how would you guide them, the enterprises to adopt this hybrid cloud approach? What would be your key recommendations to them?
I think the best way to answer this, let me step back a little bit and first let's see that the two big audiences for tech companies and customers, CIOs and CTOs, what do they actually deliver for their company? If you say technology, my view is that's just the beginning now. There was a recent report by McKinsey, I believe, that said that 85% of CIOs and CTOs who were interviewed in 2019 said that they were essential for at least 2 to 3 of the most common CEO priorities: revenue acceleration, agility improvement, time to market, of course, cost reduction. So I believe IT modernization strategies, which include, just the way you said, a hybrid cloud, they are key to business growth and agility. That's the essence of providing it. And yet, 80% of CIOs report that regardless of their level of cloud migration, they still haven't reached their projected agility and business benefits. Sometimes I believe this is because of issues like training, skill gaps in the IT workforce. And surprisingly, the barrier to reaching these goals is based on the trade offs that the CIOs themselves feel they need to make to strike a balance between the perfect and the possible, if you will. Trade offs like developer agility versus control and governance, single vendor benefits versus freedom from lock in, best of breed tools versus standardization and familiarity. So, what if you could have done all of this without the trade-offs? And that is why, again, go back to say that building that capability uh, with the platforms that we have on open source components like Kubernetes, Istio, Knative, and that platform capability with Anthos gives you the business, the choice that you need, and with the ability to create code that works in most environments using the tools, languages, and systems you prefer. It's important that the freedom of choice is retained by the decision makers and the customer while they harness the capabilities and actually go around meeting the goals that their CEOs push them for.
Rajesh, you'd like to add something on the hybrid cloud approach? Rajesh, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Is this okay? Yeah, I was on mute. I'm sorry. So as Karan alluded to, hybrid cloud removes the complexity from the environment of the customers because they are managing multiple public clouds, private infrastructure, edge locations, etc. And as I said, so Dell Technologies Cloud, what we have built with VMware and Dell infrastructure, it provides a consistent operating model and a single operational hub and helps remove silos. Very similar to what Karan said. So you could connect to any public cloud, manage the private infrastructure, manage silos across with a single operational hub. As you spoke about, you're using the tool to manage the GCP, but the tool is flexible enough to also manage various public clouds. Again, it's a choice and flexibility with the customer, but the fact remains, it's a multi-cloud world, right? There will be certain applications which will be ready to move to cloud. There will be certain legacy applications which are difficult to move to cloud, either because the way they were written or the requirement of the security and other things, or for whatever reason, customers want them to retain on-premise. So there has to be a single way of operation, right? And that's why we say cloud is more an operating model rather than a destination that we're looking at. And hence, hybrid cloud is the way to go.
Excellent. So that was a great discussion. I think we covered a lot of interesting topics. I think a lot of the data center colleagues would benefit from both what Karan and both Rajesh said. Whether it was about multi-cloud, whether it was about security and the perception of security, whether it was about skills needed for managed services, whether it was the innovation on digital infrastructure by Dell that Dell talked about, and and about the hybrid cloud approach. Any closing thoughts before before we wrap up? I just like maybe 1 minute each. Anything you want to say? Happy to have both of you. Maybe Karan and Rajesh, you can just say like one closing thought each, and then we can wrap up.
I sort of, I've been on many discussions over the last 3 to 4 months. And while this closing comment may not relate to the theme as such, I believe that this crisis, while it has very unfortunate dimensions, yet has a silver lining in terms of the acceleration it has given organizations to embrace digitization. The pace of digitization, I don't know, there are many varying measures of that. I think it's simply gone multifold in these 4 months. And a lot of our assumptions have been debunked, if you will, that we had come around to believing. The biggest opportunity for us is as we come out of this unfortunate situation, not to waste the crisis, to actually take the learnings that we have from these 3 months and reinvent our ways of working. And the second thing I would call out to the broader tech community is that the time now is to evolve from buying technology to fundamentally changing it to partnering for technology. Given the fact that your technology surface area is going to significantly increase, and we've seen that, the time now is to partner for technology versus buying traditionally the way that we have in the past. So that would be the way I'll close, Sharad.
Thank you. And Rajesh, any final thought from your side?
Yeah, thank you. I started off by saying it's a period of enforced innovation. The digitization just got, or digital transformation just got accelerated, right? More importantly, what I wanted to say was, in this evolving world, in this ever-changing world, it's always better to work with the ecosystem of partners. And that's the approach we have taken as a company, of working with service providers like you, working with cloud service providers like Karan's company, as well as few others. And I think, as Karan said, it's all about partnering now. Because what the customers need to focus on are outcomes, rather than trying to put the pieces together and make it work at the lowest possible cost. Lowest possible cost may not be cost out. It may be adding more cost in managing, running, etc., right? So it's partnering, and it's helping deliver outcomes and deliver to CEO expectations rather than delivering infrastructure expertise.
Thank you so much, Karan and Rajesh. It was very, very enlightening session. I think the conference so far has been talking about co-location, large-scale, hyperscale data centers, incentives from the government. But I think it's very refreshing to see what goes inside data centers, the digital infrastructure that powers data centers, and how enterprises and customers will benefit from all the innovation that your two companies are doing. Thank you once again. It is a pleasure on behalf of CII. I'd like to thank both of you for spending your very valuable time and enlightening the audience with your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharad, for the invitation. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rajesh. Good to meet you.
Thanks, Karan. Bye.
Rahul, over to you. Are you there?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, Rahul.
Yes.
You can take over.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much for your time and taking the session through. It was very insightful, and there were a couple of questions which I tried to send to you. I guess it just missed out on that. No problem with. And we'll move on to the next session. We have the next panel session. It's on digital infrastructure, which just concluded a brief discussion on that. So this panel moderated by Mr. Rachit Mohan, the Senior Director and India Head Data Center Practices, JLL. Mr. Surajit Chatterjee, Vice President and Country Head, Capital and India Data Center Group, will be the first panel member. Second is Mr. Pankaj Singh, Senior Vice President, Data Center Business, Adani Group. Third, Mr. Sudhanshu Dutt, he's the Director for AECOM. And next one is Mr. Shubhankar Das, Head of Data Center Sales, Sterling and Wilson. Unfortunately, Mr. Mayank Srivastava couldn't join the call today. He had some emergency engagement that came up, so he sends his apologies for missing out on this session. It's all over to Rachit from here.
Thanks a lot, Rahul, and thank you so much, Sharad. Very, very insightful session with you, Karan and Rajiv. Last session, it was very, very, very interesting. We are now, and I've been following the event since yesterday. This has been a great event, and congratulations to CII and the whole group for putting this together. It's an absolutely fantastic event with very good turnout. Today this session we are entering into is a very interesting one. We are going to be talking about technology, and we're going to be talking about innovation. We'll talk about emerging technologies. We're going to talk about modernization, upgradation of data centers. We're at a very interesting cusp in India right now. As per RJLL's last published data from a few months ago, India data center, co-location data center capacity is sitting at 350 megawatts. And that is expected to double or even triple in the next 4 to 5 years. And that, which really means that there's a very, very large amount of investment which is going to go into building new capacities. It is also going to mean a significant amount of upgradation of existing facilities. This brings a really interesting opportunity for us as an industry to adopt as much of the latest technology as we can in bringing all this capacity over here. We had on 15th of July, Mukesh Ambani came to the, he came on the AGM for Reliance Industries and made a few very large announcements. Of course, we are all aware about the Google investment, Facebook investment, etc. But one very interesting thing he talked about the two pillars of Reliance, and he talked about the digital connectivity and digital platforms. And he talked about the 5 accelerators for the growth of digital connectivity. What I've really picked up out of this whole conversation in a big manner was about how they are now going to be bringing in the 5G technology, and this is going to be an indigenous India, made in India, Atmanirbhar 5G technology, which is going to be rolled out of India. And when you look at that story, along with ambitious plans of Reliance of putting 1 billion smart sensors across the country and putting mobile broadband by way of over 500 million mobile customers, this is going to change the dynamics of data creation. It is going to change the dynamics of data compute and storage globally. And the times ahead are going to be very interesting. So we are going to have this discussion in the same light, and we have very esteemed panelists, and we're going to be talking about some of the top technologies, and we'll start with Surajit. And Surajit, if you could, one of the big trends, and of course the last conversation, Karan and Rajiv really talked about hybrid cloud and multi-cloud platforms, etc. If you can start with telling us what are enterprises thinking right now, and what forms of enterprise adoption, what are the kind of cloud infrastructure services and hosted private cloud kind of platforms which are going around today from the enterprise customers perspective.
Sure. Thanks, Rachit. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
And thank you, CII, for organizing, I think, really quite an eye-opener in terms of the discussions, the kind of panelists we are having. Well, cloud, it has been a very interesting terminology for the last almost 3 to 5 years. India has been seeing enterprise seen a large upsurge in the last 2 to 3 years. Today, when we see cloud, we typically talk of public cloud, private hosted cloud, and hybrid cloud. These are the 3 variations what we are seeing. As businesses continue to digitize and more applications, need to move towards cloud, enterprises are now clearly looking at in terms of distinguishing themselves, from the core and the non-core applications in where the cloud deployment will happen. When we talk of core applications, which has high latencies, which has high uptimes, they continue to dominate on the physical side in terms of physical infra. But the non-core applications, typically like your HRMS, your marketing side, they are now seeing a lot of deployment happening on the cloud, which is not only flexible, agile, they give a lot of cost competitiveness to clients. They're also very, customized in terms of pay-per-use model. So which is giving a customer, an enterprise customer, a lot of flexibility in terms of deployment, in terms of adding more layers of applications layers as it keeps growing, and thereby creating that synergy between core and non-core for his end clients, which are his customers. So that's predominantly the space right now, Rachit, on the cloud deployment as far as enterprise are concerned.
Nice. And what about the core functions? Those are continuing to be on-prem, or are we looking at colo models around that? And what about hybrid models? Is that also something which is coming up?
I think core will continue to see colo for some more time in India. And but yes, the private hosted cloud environment is also seeing an upsurge. I think the private cloud needs a lot of data security, a lot of other security compliances to go. So large enterprises, especially the banking sector, will continue to look at deployment on both colo and private hosted. I think typically, if you look at the spectrum of enterprise, Rachit, which is typically the banking, the manufacturing, the e-com, the retail, the hospitality, these here the application layer is increasing, as we are moving forward. Users are increasing, application layers are increasing. For a CIO or a CTO, it is a challenge to how to ensure deployment at the right time with a minimal of downtime, and the businesses are able to deploy. So I think India, as we move from here, India will see a huge upsurge in the hybrid environment to come. When we say hybrid, it will be a mix of both public and private for a large enterprise to be deployed. That gives them not only scalability, that will also give them a lot of agility and customization to be offered, which they need to have now, because as new applications they are introducing for their end clients, it needs to get constant into a testing environment, which a cloud can offer you in a much more easier way.
That's very helpful. Coming to Pankaj. Pankaj, now there's a lot which is happening from in terms of deep learning, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and there's a whole science out there around operating these data centers and bringing efficiencies, and especially the kind of work that that co-location operators are doing. Is would you like to give a little bit of a flavor around some of these?
Sure. Sure. Am I audible?
Yes, very much.
Okay.
Very much.
Hi, Rachit, fellow panelists, and the audience. Yeah, so AI and ML is a very interesting technology adoption happening across various industries, and more so in data center now. And if you look at how it is being implemented, so improving security is one of the applications. AI-based cybersecurity can screen and analyze incoming and outgoing data and detect malware and implement behavioral analytics to protect the data. Then the other application is conserving energy. AI can learn and analyze temperature points, various flow rates, evaluate cooling equipments, collect data from smart sensors to identify sources of inefficiencies in energy consumption, and autonomously fix these inefficiencies, and thereby reducing the energy consumption. Reducing downtime is the other application. Artificial intelligence can monitor server performance, network congestion, disk utilization, and that way they can detect and predict data outages in time. Then implementing server optimization is the other application. AI-powered predictive analytics can help distribute workload across different servers. Then monitoring different equipments. AI utilizes pattern-based learning to identify defects in an equipment. And then also it helps in changing the staffing in data center with more and more adoption of cloud platform and deployment of those. Staffing needs to be managed, and that is undergoing transformation as well using AI. And ML specifically, machine learning, it helps, of course. By the way, machine learning is part of AI, right? It helps in efficiency and analysis, capacity analysis, risk analysis, customer churn analysis, budget impact, and modeling as well. So the early adopters of AI ML have used it to tackle efficiency and risk analysis to begin with. So let me give you a quick example of how uh, you know uh, a major company has been using AI ML for bringing about efficiencies. So if you look at Google. Google has used, and you might have heard about this as well, its DeepMind has been experimenting and using AI to optimize various cooling activities. What it does is it has about 21 variables it keeps looking at all the time, and then AI powered recommendation system is there, which helps in improving and making continuous minor improvements across the wide area network, and that has helped them cut energy usage, cost, and has made the facilities environmentally sustainable, which is a good thing to happen. And and it has been a phenomenal success. DeepMind's machine learning algorithms for Google. Uh, they say that the uses of energy has been for cooling has been reduced by 40% without compromising any server performance. And that's the great news, that AI and ML and such emerging technologies are making an impact, on the company's bottom line, as well as the environment sustainability as well. I can go on with multiple other examples, but I'll stop here now.
No, this is very, very, very encouraging. And when we hear about AI, ML, and deep learning, and how the industry is adopting all these things into bringing in efficiencies, which some of the on-prem data centers, a lot of the enterprises are not able to do some of these things on a small scale. This is very, very encouraging and a very, very interesting piece. Sudhanshu, you are quite a legend in the Indian data center industry, and with Sharad, you have built many entity data centers as well in the past, and advising some of the others. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about, now that you're sitting on the AECOM side, and I'm going to also blend in Mayank's question into yours. So what are the new in design, and how is design changing from data center perspective, and how is BIM helping in improving the design efficiency in what you guys are building right now, and if you could bring in an angle of how we are now bringing high density deployments into India, that would be really interesting, Sudhanshu.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachit, for that very high introduction. I'm honored to be part of this. Thanks to you, thanks to CII, and very good afternoon to all fellow panelists and all guests, esteemed guests who are viewing this. Very interesting question you have put here, Rachit, on how is BIM and digitization and how we are experiencing innovation in the design part of it. Now, I think we all are very much aware that the industry is witnessing exponential growth in the data center industry, and I mean the recent COVID issue has further accelerated only the growth, if not anything less, to the industry. And whoever are the existing players in the market, it's exciting times for them. And I would still say that in certain geographies, the demand outstrips the supply. And lot of new players are venturing into this field. Some are sitting on the fence, some are already taken the plunge, and I'm sure there will be ample space for all to survive. Let's see where the future takes us. Now, along with all this growth, what we are also witnessing is a lot of hyperscale designs. Earlier, we had never heard of consolidated designs being done for 100 megawatts, 60 megawatts of data center in one location. and that is the new ask of the day. How many of these will actually grow and see the actual light of the day, to what extent they will grow. But if you look at international data, yes, there are large data center parks which are 100 megawatts, 200 megawatts, 150 megawatts, and the likes of those are being worked upon in India. There are multiple stakeholders who are working on these designs. Along with these designs, also along with the hyperscale requirement, also what is happening is there's a requirement growing for faster scalability, and that's also an expectation from the design. And also people want modular but very fast deployability of each module, and the growth modules of each DC or each data center are becoming faster and faster. There's another very interesting term which we also hear from all the new data center players is early go-to-market strategy. Now, how can they deploy fast? How can they build fast? All these are the new requirements which are coming up in the market. And along with all that is also the pressure of better efficiency, lower PUEs, because the scale at which people are building, they are growing larger and larger. It's a very capex intensive industry. So how do you build fast, build more efficient, build modular? I think all of these, we offer all of these as a e-commerce, as a service in terms of design. And what we follow is a fully digital platform of design, which is completely on 3D and on Revit. And there are different levels to it, level of design 300, 400, 500, where if you work on a fully digital integrated platform, it's a faster time to delivery. The delivery happens in a clash-free model. Whatever data center which you're going to build, you can build it virtually on a 3D or a 4D model and make it a clash-free model. You can do all your studies on it in terms of power analysis, electrical modeling, CFD modeling. I mean, imagine a data center, if you are planning to design with 100 megawatts of power consumption, I mean, they will have at least 50 to 55 generator sets, even if it's a tier 3 design working on an N+1 redundancy. You'll have 50 plus generators working at the same time whenever power goes. And all those things can be modeled on a digital platform, on a BIM platform. The performance of the data center can be designed and measured at the design stage itself. And what we finally get is a clash-free model where there is we avoid rework. It's faster delivery. You can deliver modularly. So all the asks of the industry where the expectations are rising are being met with the improved digital technology in the design. And within the design, all the services, whether it is architectural, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing services, all the services can be integrated into one digital model where it becomes much easier during the build stage. It becomes error-free, clash-free, and a faster delivery of the design. Those are the advantages of BIM, as you have asked. Also, other advantages of this digital design is that you can define your quantities in BOQs. You can extract them directly from the model. From the model, any sectional drawing you want to take out, they can easily be taken out and worked at site. The as-built validation can also be done against the model. The builds can be validated faster, and they are more error-free, more clash-free. So this automation of design is also becoming a need or a necessity of the fast-growing industry. What challenge I face in this is that it is not just the designer community or the consulting community which has to have the capability of BIM. It has to be the user community and especially the contractor community. Today, I see a huge gap where after a project is completed, the contractors are struggling to deliver the as-built drawings. Now, there are certain set of contractors, level A contractors, who are also upgrading themselves to the BIM capabilities. They are working on BIM capabilities. They are making the GFC drawings on BIM. They are making the as-built drawings on BIM, and that is the way forward where we will meet the expectations of the industry. So this is my submission. Apart from that, on the digitization of design, the complete electrical fault level modelings are possible. Those are different tools available. There are different tools available for CFD modeling of a complete site, which become very, very necessary, especially when you're doing larger designs of hyperscale projects of 100 megawatts plus. We can't leave any space for error because these are all very, very highly capex intensive designs. So that's, I hope I've answered your question well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. This really does help, and there's definitely you've highlighted a big point around the upskilling of talent, the high need of upskilling of talent to adopt BIM technology, and especially on all sides, on operator side, operating side, contracting side, all these sides, and that will definitely help in bringing a lot more efficiency. I think coming from design and BIM, I think your biggest partner is the contracting side. And Subhankar, thank you to you and Prasenjit for backing this CII event. You guys are one of the most contractors in building data centers. Would you like to give a view on what is new on construction tech? What is new in terms of what kind of new technologies are we looking at to reduce dependency on let's say labor availability, or bringing timelines for delivery shorter? What are you doing? What's happening over there?
Yeah, thank you, Rachit, and good afternoon to all. Yes, we are from the contractor community. Few pointers to start with while I address your question. As you said, there is about a 350 megawatt is the installed capacity in India today. So give or take, the national data center physical infra market, sans the land acquisition and the IT part of it, is about 7,500, 8,000 crores, right? And it's poised to grow to about, as you also said, it's poised to grow about 15,000, 16,000 crores in the next 3-4 years. But as told by you, as told by Sudhanshu, there is probably only 3-4 credible data center specialist general contractors who can probably take up the design, who can do the site development, who can do the civil works, the MEP, the integrated site acceptance test up to level 5, etc., etc. So I think that's one major gap in the industry currently. And as everybody has been saying, there is a clamor for people coming here. The hyperscalers are already there. They are expanding very rapidly. There are the co-location service providers. So there is this gap, I think, which needs to be filled up. And taking cue from that, in the current situation where all these people are trying to go for a faster deployment, the GTM has to be absolutely fast. Each one is trying to be before the other. Now, a small diversion from the realms of the clouds. Let's come to the on ground, absolutely on ground, this construction. From our typical cast in situ construction, right, for both say post tension or pre tension, to the precast precast slab kind of a construction. I think now we are looking at PEBs, the pre-engineered building construction. I think that's the trend. What we are seeing is happening, even though the costs are probably say around 20 to 25% more than the cast in situ kind of construction. However, the timelines what we are gaining is significant, as everybody is trying to be there first. Second, in these circumstances where getting the labor force, whether it is in the factory or it is actually on the sites, that's also a concern. And these kind of PEB structures are probably the best suited in this situation to address this problem as well. So this is, I think, in the normal brick and mortar civil construction kind of thing, this is probably the way which it is going, the industry. Now, looking at another facet from your question, we talked about containers in the fireside chat, but those containers are on the cloud, they're the Dockers and those kind of, now we are talking about actual containers, prefabricated containers. I don't know how many of you know here, it's almost a $3.5 billion industry in the world today. Okay. And it's poised to be about around $4.5 billion in the next 1 year or so. And no surprises that almost 40% of it is in the US, about 30% is in Europe, roughly about 13% is in Latam and Africa together, and the rest 17% in APAC. India is hardly a $50 million market for prefabricated containers today, primarily for defense, AFNET, and a few other choice defense and government projects. Barring that, we don't see much of a play. The reason probably is obviously this is more of a horizontal deployment, right? The containers you cannot stack beyond 2 or 3 levels. So that's pretty much a challenge probably in India, where everybody in Mumbai or in Chennai, where the cable landing stations are, where people are trying to go land, is a problem. So they're looking for these containerized solutions probably is a challenge in India. And with the co-location service providers and hyperscalers looking at increasing the rack space, the height of the container also becomes a question. Notwithstanding that, yeah, and one more point is also there is a tipping point, probably beyond 500 racks. The prefabricated containerized solution may not be optimal. Okay, so nevertheless, notwithstanding that, what we see, and we also serve in Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia markets. What we are seeing is that there is a complete explosion, I would say, of these kind of prefabricated containerized solutions. Middle East, whether you take UAE or you take Saudi Arabia, you take Qatar, you take Oman. In fact, as we speak, we are actually executing modular projects in Egypt, in Morocco, in Ghana, in Oman, and we are in very advanced stages of discussion with co-location service providers in Nigeria, in Kenya, in several other parts of Africa, as well as in Middle East, and also in Southeast Asia, in Philippines and in Indonesia. So this is a trend, I think, which is going to catch up. There are limitations, as I said, but from a go-to-market perspective, from a cookie-cutter factory design perspective, where you can primarily standardize most of the things, I think this is a solution which is really looking promising. From Sterling and Wilson, the Atmanirbhar or Make in India, if I expand, in our own Silvassa factory, it's a state-of-the-art factory which primarily is known for its diesel generator assembly. Okay, we have also expanded, and now we have a full-fledged container, prefabricated containerized factory. Now, unlike the competition, whether it is a blade room or a base layer or Huawei or Schneider or probably Vertivs and HPs, and there are many competitors, we are actually not sourcing the shipping containers and trying to retrofit. We are actually building the containers grounds up there. So using the best possible cotton stills, the best possible insulations, the 4-point doors, and so on. So in brief, we have a full-fledged setup for prefabricated containers. And also we have started making e-houses, what we call, in which we house the, the panels, and also give a small office setup kind of a thing, which is all prefabricated. So to answer your question, this is a trend, I think, which is coming up. One, I said in a brick and mortar, what I talked about is the adoption of PEBs to reduce the timelines and reduce the dependency on the migrant laborers and workforce on ground, both in factory and as in, in the site. And second is the kind of the prefabricated containerized solutions, what we are looking at. So that's from my side for your question.
Thank you so much. That's extremely interesting to see that these kind of prefabricated solutions and PEB structures you guys are doing over here, and I'm sure you will. There's going to be a boom in your adoption over here as well. Very quickly, I would like to come back to you, Surajit, and maybe Shubhankar, you can also help in on this point. Now, I did talk about 5G technology in the beginning, and that is going to be something, and the weakest link really is the infrastructure around that, and one of the big points around that is the edge technology or the edge data centers to bring in the latency to the users, to the eventually to the OTT guys, to get data to the eyeballs. Would you like to give us a little bit of a flavor of what's happening in the edge technologies in light of the 5G rollout?
I think it's, as far as India is concerned, I think the edge is still a little early stage. I think, the arrival of 5G, will bring a lot of other aspects to it in terms of the, the connectivity and the data sharing. I think edge computing will account for about 75% of the enterprise, generated data. And that's what Gartner is also predicting, by 2024 and 2025. I think there are still some issues to be ironed out, before we look at a 5G rollout with its full potential. The infrastructure of the data centers, must be strategized to cope up with the demand of data that the 5G rollout bring. The regulatory will play a very key role here, to see that how we are able to optimize that, and requirements will be negotiated, introduced. And I think the potential security vulnerabilities still, have to be addressed. I think when we talk of 5G, needless to say that billions of devices would be connected. I think data center as an infrastructure needs to be ready in terms of, the connectivity, the fiber rollouts, maybe the dark fiber connecting the DC-DR site, so on and so forth. Still a little early, but I think the edge data centers will see a lot of scope and, potential in coming years to iron out these typical issues, That's from my side.
Now, Rachit, this is Sudhanshu here, just to add to what Surajit was saying. Shubhankar was complaining that the market in this side of the geography doesn't yet has enough space for accommodating prefab and pre-built small containerized data center solutions, which is sort of norm in other geographies. Edge is one technology that will help drive the prefabs and the pre-built technologies more from a size standpoint and also from a faster deployability standpoint. And that's the only way you can get closer to the customer, and that's what edge technologies is about. So I thought I should add that for the benefit of Shubhankar.
No, I absolutely agree. Even the prefabs and also the micro and the mini, the single cabinet, room in room kind of solutions, which will also be very useful. See, whether it is virtual reality or autonomous driving or whatever, augmented reality, video streaming, real-time gaming, whatever it is, you will require not only even the prefabs, but the smaller, single cabinet or two cabinets, smart, whatever you call it, those solutions are also going to be more and more, used probably, but in the days to come. So the 5G adoption is also, a question mark right now. So as and when it starts happening, right now I'm struggling at whatever Mbps I can't share with my two daughters, in the adjacent rooms. So that's that's something which has to happen as a reality very soon.
Now, just coming, thank you so much, Subhankar and Sudhanshu. John actually raised a very good question on the chat box around sustainability, and he talked about how immersed cooling is the future, and how we have been using coal-based power generation for a while. Pankaj, I'm going to look at you for some help over here. As Adani Enterprises is right in the forefront of renewables for India as a country, actually. And congratulations on the recent 8 gigawatt solar generation project as well. Would you like to give a view on how you are looking at sustainability and renewable resources and tech around that, around bringing solar, biomass, and wind together to give the right solution for your cloud customers?
Sure. Well, that's a very important topic to address, actually, Rachit. So, in order to get a leadership role in data center business today, we have to embrace sustainability. We know all the hyperscalers have been, focusing on renewable energy, and yet there is a tremendous amount of scrutiny from the environmental groups like the Greenpeace of the world. And they're saying that, these guys are not keeping pace. So the attention is not going to go away. The data center guys will always be under scrutiny, how they are leveraging and transitioning towards cleaner energy and economy. So our entire industry ethos will be judged over the next 5 years or so. So we have to build more sustainable solutions, and renewables is the way to go. And keeping, with that preface, I think, we know that the big hyperscalers like the Facebooks and the Googles and Microsoft of the world, they have, I think Facebook said they will be 86% renewable by 2019, 20, something like that. So you will hear all this happening. And that's one aspect. But then there is the consumers also who are demanding cleaner solutions, like the cloud platforms. When you talk about that, there's been a lot of focus on retooling the entire way of working for a sustainable future. And the largest cloud builders are focusing and committing to green energy. So the entire supply chain will have to embrace sustainability in a big way and in new ways, leveraging different technologies as well. And we at Adani have been focused. We have this two-pronged strategy when we look at data centers. One is, to be the solution providers for hyperscalers, and two, to be renewable powered data centers. Reason being that the clients, the hyperscalers, are demanding renewable powered data centers for them, and for them the demand comes from the community and at large, and the consumers. So this is going to continue to evolve and become an important aspect of all our lives in the data center industry, that we focus and drive adoption of renewable energy in a more in a significant manner. So I'll pause here, and if there is any question, we can talk more.
I think that really does help get your views over here. I'm going to ask an open question next, and it's for we've got Surajit, you and Pankaj, both of you are actually co-location operators in that business, and co-location as a business is constantly coming under pressure from the wholesale occupiers, the cloud customers who would come in, and when they are buying in wholesale, the margins are going down and down. And of course, I mean, on one side we're talking about the cloud adoption is going to be massive. On the other side, we're saying that the kind of infrastructure which is going to come up in our country to accommodate this cloud is going to be massive as well. But at the same time, the margins are getting thinner and thinner, and some of the hyperscalers do tend to consider, we've seen this in other parts of the world where they have self-performed by going a build route as well. My question to Pankaj, Surajit, and I noticed that Jitendra has also joined in a little early for his next thing. If you could throw a light on what is your view on how co-location business is going to stay relevant in light of the hyperscalers self-build trend, which is picking up in some parts of the world. That would be really interesting to see. Maybe Pankaj, you could start off on this, and Surajit and Jatendra, you could pitch in over here as well. I think Pankaj is on mute. Surajit I think Pankaj is there.
Hello.
Yeah, Pankaj, we can hear you.
Okay, all right, good. So, the on-prem workloads are migrating in a big way into cloud and colo.
Pankaj, you have gone into mute. I think you'll have to take a stab at going again. Hello? Okay, I think we've lost Pankaj. Surajit, would you like to try and take a shot at this question which we've got over here?
I think we are seeing a trend, Rachit, that the on-prem workloads are getting moved into the data center facility on the cloud. But I continue to maintain that stand that the core application will still drive a larger part of the co-location business. Yes, there is a margin pressure, no doubt. But I think as we start this journey for new operators, specifically in India, I think we have to create a bouquet of managed services to be built along that, which can create a lot of value to a mid-size client, maybe not for the hyperscalers in totality, but definitely for the enterprise side, who sees a lot of management to be done from a data center service provider in bringing a total cost of ownership to the client and reducing the cost and also the viability. So I think and I continue to maintain my earlier statement, which says that India will see a very high growth on the hybrid side. I mean, it is not going to be only cloud. It is not going to be only physical infra. I think it is the perfect balance of the hybrid, which will draw a lot of potential, lot of additional revenue streams, and also have quite a control on the margin thing.
Thank you, Surajit. That really does help. All in all, we had a pretty interesting and a good session. I'm going to just quickly summarize. We started with first question was around enterprise adoption, where Surjit came and told us about enterprises looking at private cloud, public cloud, on-prem, and a hybrid cloud model. He did mention that there are core and non-core functions. Some of the non-core functions are going to go onto cloud, while the core functions are going to be either on-prem or colo kind of a model. Some of the key functions where security and, for example, especially companies where banking companies, manufacturing companies, this is going to be the colo route is going to be a key part of the deployment strategy. Pankaj talked about AI, deep learning, and machine learning. He talked about adoption in data centers. He talked about security, cybersecurity, malware threats, and mentioned that these kind of technologies are only going to help in securing against these. He talked about smart sensors. He talked about how we would be able to use conserve energy using this and bring in energy efficiencies, downtime reduction, predictive maintenance and analytics, equipment defects detection can be done, staffing transformation can be done. He talked about machine learning, bringing in efficiency into the systems, and risk analysis well in advance. He gave an example, a very good example about Google's DeepMind initiative, which is a machine learning algorithm which works on 21 variables, where the AI recommends minor improvements in the van and brings a lot more sustainabilities. And it has actually been able to bring down cooling costs by almost 40%. Sudhanshu talked about design and BIM technology. He talked about that India is, data centers is a high growth industry. He talked about that we are seeing new large scale designs of 100, 150 megawatts of IT load, which are coming up. These are highly efficient data centers with low PUEs, which require fast deployment, modular deployment, and very efficient design. He did mention that the BIM provides three-dimensional and four-dimensional models, which one can work with digitally. This can help bring power and engineering modeling, bringing performance at design stage itself. Design technology, MEP servicing. He talked about it helps defining the quantities and BOQs well in advance, reduce errors. Design automation can be brought in. One of the big challenges he talked about was that while at designer level we have high skill levels, but on the contractor side and the operator side, the skill upliftment is still happening. We went on to discussing with Subhankar on the contracting part. On the GC side, he talked about that there are 3 or 4 large contractors who are building data centers in India. With a large focus on faster deployment. He mentioned that 2 major technologies which they have been focusing on. One is PEB structures, and these are, even though come at about 20 to 25% at a higher cost, colo operators and hyperscalers are preferring this route because of the fast deployment. He talked about customized solutions. He talked about the prefab containerized solutions, which have relatively been a challenge in India. However, they've seen a lot of the deployments in Nigeria, Egypt, Southeast Asia, and Middle East. He did talk about Sterling and Wilson is adopting Make in India, and they've got their factory in Silvassa where they are doing these prefabricated containers over there. Surajit talked about edge technology and said that while this is something of the future, we are a little early to start building infrastructure for that. He said that there are certain challenges. 2 or 3 key things he talked about. One is from a regulatory framework perspective, security framework perspective, and then the third thing was the dark fiber network, which needs to reach all locations, is something that he mentioned. Subhankar and Sudhanshu did add in over here about the prefab containerized solutions, which are helping in solutioning the edge, micro edge, and mini data center edge solutions. Pankaj talked very interesting stuff about sustainability. Talked that data centers are as an asset class is something which is going through a lot of scrutiny for sustainability. The customers, which are the large FANG companies and the other hyperscalers, they are coming in and demanding sustainable and renewable backed solutions from co-location operators. He talked about Adani Enterprises, how they have a two-pronged strategy where on one side they're looking at creating solutions for their hyperscale customers, and on the other side they're looking at renewables powered data centers. Separately, Surajit talked about that the opportunity for cloud is very large. There's going to be but TOC is going to be constantly under pressure, but the opportunity is still large, and there's enough for everybody over here. Thank you so much. That's all from our side. Rahul, over to you, and thank you so much to all the panelists for a very engaging and a very interesting debate today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajit. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajit.
Thank you, Rachit, for taking the session ahead with your insightful and strategic talk here. Now we'll move on to the next session. The next session will be a presentation, and it will be presented by Mr. Jatinder Singh Pavla. He's the Vice President, Sales and Marketing for STT Global Data Centers India Private Limited, and he will be talking on riding the digital wave. May I please welcome Mr. Pavla?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. If I can be given the presentation rights, I can share my screen.
Yes.
The rights are given, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. Just give me one moment so that. And let me know if you are able to see the screen.
Yes, sir. Need to go to full screen, sir.
Yeah, I've already done that.
Yes, sir. Looking nice.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. So once again, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm Jatinder Singh Pavla, and I am representing STT GDC India. I think all of us agree today that it is a phase where the data center industry is growing at a significant pace. And there are some very strong reasons for that. I've just tried to collate that. Some of these are known, but some of these are very interesting when you put the numbers along with that. So, for example, the first reason because of which the data center industry is so bullish is the cloud and the hyperscalers. You know that the cloud in itself is growing at almost 33% CAGR in India. And the Indian cloud market is going to be around 5 billion market in next few years, and most of these cloud players are leveraging the colo players in India, and some of that growth also trickles down to colo growth, and that is why you'll see that, and that is one of the reasons you'll see that colo is also growing at almost 23%. So one good thing is that when people are outsourcing in India, they are choosing to outsource either to cloud or to colo. But in both cases, I think as a colo industry, we should be happy because ultimately that growth is landing on us as well. In terms of numbers, you can see that cloud is definitely growing at a much faster pace. The overall revenue size of cloud is also higher. The cloud revenue is 73% of total pie, while the colo revenue is approximately 27% of the total outsourcing pie. But both are growing at significant pace, and that is a good news for all of us. The third key driver is the entire digital transaction. So when we're talking about being a 5 trillion, or let's say even if we land up to between between 4 to 5 trillion. You're talking about the digital transactions reaching up to 1 trillion by that time. So you're talking about almost 25% of transactions happening through digital channels. So that is definitely going to drive a good amount of growth on the data center industry, because this will require a good amount of transaction, good amount of application processing, and also the data storage. So this is also driving the colo growth in India. The data sovereignty regulations are getting more and more clear, as well as more and more real. The RBI notification is already in effect since 2018 October, but there are lots of other notifications which have also started taking effect. For example, data protection bill for personal data, e-commerce policy, which just got into shape a couple of weeks back, and all these regulations are pushing providers to set up their DCs in India, to set up their DRs in India. Some of those are mandating only the data to be here. Some of the regulations are mandating some part of application processing to be here. But more or less, all these regulations are pushing more and more customers to set up their base in India in terms of data center. So this is also driving a significant growth. Edge, DC, and device momentum. All of us know that this is a real story, but the numbers behind that also gives a very drastic, I would say, information. So today, the internet coverage in India is just around 30%, not more than that. You're talking about broadband, the broadband where the video and all can be used. It's just 30%, so 30% real coverage. We're talking about that coverage to reach up to 70% in another couple of years. So just think about the growth which it will bring, because more video, more e-commerce means more processing and more data storage. And 50% of that traffic is going to be video and e-commerce, and that too also from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So the internet, the reliance on video, the reliance on e-commerce and cloud and IoT spreading beyond tier 1 cities is also going to drive a good amount of momentum, and especially in the edge market. And lastly, of course, the investment. I think all of us have seen immense amount of announcements which have happened over the last 1 year. And this, of course, is driving all the growth, because once the capacity is there, it will attract more customers, and government also will get more conducive, because the investment would start coming in a major chunk. So all these things, including cloud, data sovereignty, colo, outsourcing growth, digital transaction, edge momentum, investment, all these things are driving significant growth of colo market in India. So while this looks very promising, but we also need to know where do we stand today. Despite all that is happening, we are still at around 2 to 3% of world's colo market. So that is our share, which if you just compare it to the economy of India, I think if you just take a nominal GDP, we are just around 1 to 2%. But if you take a PPP GDP, we are almost at around 10% of world economy. So so that also shows that there is a huge amount of potential, but the current share is very low. It is very low, and which is projected to double in 18 months, but it is still very low. All said and done, India is at around 300 megawatt of design capacity today. There are lots of announcements, but the real capacity on the ground is 300 megawatt. We are targeting to reach 600 megawatts in 18 months, and around 1 gigawatt in 3 to 4 years. But just put it in perspective to what is happening worldwide. USA alone added half a gigawatt of capacity last year. So huge potential if you compare the industries, if you compare the population. So which all those things point to the fact that while it is just a start, but there is a huge amount of potential, and it is not the time to be complacent with all this growth which is happening. The potential is much higher. India is the second largest DC market in APAC, but China is growing at almost 4 to 5 times ahead of India. The good news is that world colocation, while it's growing at 12% CAGR, while we are growing between 20 to 25%. So promising start, I would say, for India, but huge scope for growth, and that is why probably it is attracting so much of investment, and that is why all of us are so bullish about India. I'll just take maybe a couple of minutes to just share what we are doing, what STT GTC India is doing to ride the growth wave. So we currently, so we are operating in India since 2004. We acquired a majority stake of Tata Communications data center business a couple of years back. And the new, that is why you see us with a new name, STT GTC India. We have 16 DCs live across 8 cities with 105 megawatt, and that brings us to almost 33% market share. You can see that the data centers are located in every city in India. In fact, we are the most spread data center player in India. And there are plans, or firm plans for expanding and going up to 2x of 105 megawatt in a couple of years. And these are hard numbers. These are not projections based on some assumptions. These are hard numbers. These are projections based on the business cases which we have approved. And for some of them, the data centers are already under construction. For example, Pune, Chennai, Delhi, the data centers are already under construction, while Mumbai and Hyderabad is still to start. So we are a significant player in India and also worldwide. Now, this slide is quite interesting. One, of course, it helps me state that we are a global player. But if you can just put another lens to it, you will see that how even in Asia Pacific there is a difference between what we have in India and what we have in rest of the country, rest of the countries. So, for example, if you see in China, we are number one with 25% market share, and the capacity is 700 megawatt. In India, we are number one with 33% market share. The capacity is 105 megawatt. In Singapore and UK, we have more than 100 megawatt, but we are in top 5. So that obviously means that we are not in number 1, number 2. So we are present across all these countries with more than 100 data centers and 1 gigawatt of power. But also we understand that there is a scope for huge growth in India, and this 105 megawatt has to significantly go up, and we have all the plans to do that. Quickly, I'll not spend much time on this. I just wanted to call out that it's a very financially stable company. We have been profitable since the time we are live. There is a proven delivery track record of delivering these 105 megawatt. We are closest to the customers, and there are decades of experience in terms of operational excellence, and which brings the advantage of low maintenance window to our customers. And that is also reflected in all the awards which we have won. We are co-location service provider of the year for 3 years in a row, and this award was conferred by Frost & Sullivan. And apart from that, there are multiple other awards, including ET Iconic Brand, Great Place to Work. So all put together, just to summarize, we are leading today, and we want to lead. So we want to maintain this leadership position with 33% market share, and that will reflect in our growth plans. The bullishness and the investment is basis the fact that the DC demand is growing at more than 25%, 25% over the next couple of years. So there's a huge scope for investment and growth. And providers, including us, are reciprocating by investing in advance. And as the capacity grows, I'm sure that it will attract more and more customers also to India, and the trust into the India market will also increase, which we have started seeing. We have started seeing with all the major players. We have started seeing that more and more hyperscalers are coming and started and expanding their footprint in a major way, which was unheard a couple of years back. So very bullish about the Indian market. And I think even the government has become more conducive. We have started, the entire colo industry was always maybe on the was working maybe behind the curtains, but but in the recent past, started seeing that more and more events have started happening specific to colo industry. Government has started noticing. There are various policies like essential services which now is being conferred on data center. Governments are getting more conducive on giving lands, giving solar power access, reducing the power charges for data center players. So I think even the government has started reciprocating to all the investment which the players are making. That's all I wanted to share. I think it's a wonderful time to be in this industry, and it's also a matter of pride that we are keeping the digital infrastructure live even in current scenarios, and that should be a matter of pride for all of us. Thanks. That's all. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Mr. Pavla. It was very insightful, and it's great to understand the capabilities what TC as a service can provide. And I hope we'll have more development in this area in the coming years. It's our pleasure to have you for this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. My pleasure.
Yeah, and you finished before your time, so it was still 5:15. So you have really used your time really well. I must congratulate you on that, which is a very rarity in India.
Friday evening, 5 o'clock, and I'm sure that everyone is as excited and as eager.
I understand. I understand. All right. All right. So the next session starts at 5:20. So we have around 10 minutes of time, and in between, we'll have some videos for you so that you also learn about the different aspects of the data center industry, as well as a few insightful services. Thank you. Hello. Can you, Mr. Booth, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Booth, I can hear you.
Excellent.
Yes. We are 7 minutes early for our session.
Okay.
Mr. Pavla has really used his time well and was able to finish before time.
he has, but we can start now if you want to.
All right. So I'll just check if the other panel members are in. Mr. Singh is in. Mr. Surya is in. 1 second. Yeah, we have to get Dr. Shivraj Thaka. So you can start with the session. I'll just introduce you, and you can take it from here. And I'll connect with Dr. Thaka, and maybe he'll be joining in a minute.
Okay.
All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We have the last panel session for the day, and it's a very, very relevant topic, which we already heard about it in our previous conversations as well. This panel discussion is on operations and environment, and using operational excellence to achieve sustainability and a competitive edge. So this panel session will be moderated by Mr. John Booth. He's the Managing Director for Carbon IT. And the panel members are Mr. Venkat Raman Shivanathan, VP and Country General Manager, India, and SAR, IT Division, Schneider Electric India. Mr. PC Rohia, Executive Vice President, Reliance Data Center Park, Dr. Shivraj Thaka, Counselor, IGBC, and Mr. NK Singh, Senior Director, Business Development, Uptime Institute. May I please welcome Mr. Booth to take this session ahead?
Good afternoon, everybody. Just like to say it's 33 degrees here in where I live, which is unheard of in the UK, which is all quite interesting. So thank you for the opportunity to host this penultimate session. My name's John Booth. I'm the Managing Director of Carbon Through IT Limited. We're based in the UK, but we operate globally, and we're a data center services support company specializing in operational efficiency. We assess data centers through a number of global accreditations and provide specialist energy efficiency programs. The panel is operational environment, using operational excellence to achieve sustainability and competitive advantage. And our guests have already been introduced themselves. So I've got a couple of questions. So the first question is, which standards are in use in India and why? And are there any plans for there to be an Indian standard for data centers? So I'd like to point that towards our colleague, Mr. Swaminathan from Schneider Electric.
Yeah, thanks, John. Good afternoon and good evening to all of you. My name is Venkat Raman. Venkat is how the industry colleagues call me. I take care of Schneider Electric's data center infrastructure and telecom infrastructure division. Based in Bangalore. So that's the brief introduction. In terms of the various standards, if you ask me specifically, there is no data center standard per se as of now in the country. We generally follow the ISHRE, ASHRE guidelines as far as mechanical is concerned. There is IS and IEC for the electrical. When you go for energy efficiency standards, IGBC is trying to put together with all the OEMs participating into it. We are eagerly awaiting that. Now, of course, my co-panelist will have a smile on his face if I say that in the overall systems, Uptime Institute seems to be really doing their bit as far as the country data centers are concerned. If you ask me as an industry OEM infrastructure provider, we are very, very keen that such a data center standard is set up so that we can actually step the whole industry level of data center standards much higher. Another perspective is that compared to what we were 10 years ago, the standards of data center builds have phenomenally improved thanks to a lot of the global practices coming in, because a lot of global customers also coming in. But if we have it, it would be good. On the operation and health and safety standard, OSHA's is the ones which we have seen in the country. At Schneider Electric, obviously, we have the Schneider Performance System, based on which we follow very stringent standards in terms of site execution work, as well as the design and various other practices, with certified people actually doing the job. That's in a nutshell, I would like to say, in terms of the data center standards. Thanks, John.
Okay, Mr. Lokia.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Mr. Lokia?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are, yes.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I am Prakash Lohia from Reliance Industries Limited. We are in business from oil to the communications. Oil is a fuel for the industrial growth. Similarly, the communication will be the new fuel for the digital transformation. Now, your question is about the standards being used in India. Now, for the environment guidelines, ASRE TC 9.9 2015 is being used, giving governing the required condition for the cooling of the servers. Other commonly used guidelines are Uptime Institute Tier Standard 2014, TIA 942 2017. This is mostly telecommunication infrastructure recommendations. And then we have other standards like ISO standards, USGBC, IGBC lead certifications. And currently, we are in collaboration with BE and Lawrence Berkeley Lab. They are making a guideline for data center, ECBC guideline for the data center. That's all.
Okay, and Dr. Shivrav, I know that you've been involved in the IGBC, and we've communicated in the past. So please feel free.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
I have known faces like Noya, John Booth, NK Singh, Venkat. We haven't worked, but his colleagues like and all that are working with IGBC very closely. So, friends, my name is Sivraj Dhaka. I am from CII Indian Green Building Council, and in India, primarily we are having green certification for different typology of buildings, and we release one rating system for data centers that is about like how to have green data centers, introduce sustainability in data center. That was released in 2016, and till today we have some 11 12 data center projects. Those are going forward for green certification, specifically from STD GDC, and then data center from banking institutes. And there are few data center we don't want to disclose their name because of some issues. So as far as standards in the country, there are no specific data center standards, as Venkat also briefed about it. And Ms. Loya mentioned we started some joint work with support of Bureau of Energy Efficiency and Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, US. That project we started in 2016. We are continuing this project, and under this project, we are developing one user guide. It is called Energy Conservation Building Code User Guide for Data Centers. And this guide is aligned to ECBC 2017. That standard has been rolled out by Bureau of Energy Efficiency. This addresses data center, but there are some problems, some discrepancies with regard to equipment specifications for data centers. So that part we are doing with support of all the industry members. Second part, when we talk about data center energy efficiency also, this activity we are doing from last 12 to 13 years in many works. LBNL was part of it. What we found like earlier, energy efficiency was in the tune of like 2 PUE, even more than 2 PUE or so. But in recent, we have observed there are some data center which has moved forward and adopted high energy efficiency with regard to electrical system, primarily for cooling and selection of like very high efficient chillers which are addressing all the climatic issues with regard to India, having like adiabatic cooling, water side economizer, air side economizer. So these concepts are quite popular in the industry. And many of the OEMs, they have also taken good initiatives in this front. And we are hoping now India is moving closer to the PU of like 1.6, 1.65 for all the co-location data centers, and some of the enterprise data center, they are leading and their performance is excellent with regard to like very hot climate, tropical climate of India also. We have some examples where PUE has been reduced from a 1.6, 1.7 to 1.35. I feel to have energy efficiency for a building of about like EPI where it can be reduced from 100 to 60, it is not a phenomenal work. But having said that kind of improvement from 1.6 to 1.35, it is a fantastic activities and some of the brilliant ideas are put in data centers. I think we should salute some of the guys, those are leading the industry, and we have several examples, not like thousands because data center is very limited in numbers, but Reliance, Infosys, NetApp, these are like some of the exemplary performing performance data center where PUE, we don't want to reveal it, but it is very low. We will soon release some of the guidelines, which is as part of ECBC data center guide, and it will address all the component like chiller, cooling, electrical, and IT hardware software, which is the core, which is the heart for like energy guzzler for data centers. We are developing some case studies for very high exemplary data center projects, and there PUE, once we release in the market, I think it will set a new tune for the energy efficiency in data center. I think this is all from my side with regard to what we are doing in data center industry. Yeah, John. Yeah.
Mr. Singh from Uptime Institute.
Yeah, thanks, John. On this panel, all my good friends are there. We know each other and we have worked in the past in multiple programs or projects. This is NK Singh. I have been in the data center industry for more than 20 years, built a data center in India and across geographies, and also had exposure of working on all the layers of data center, from facility layer to application layer. So it gave me exposure and experience to stitch all this layer and bring out the best for the organization. Coming back to Uptime, it doesn't need any introduction. Uptime has been helping the industry for last 20 years. We are also known as Global Data Center Authority. And the question John asked, what are the data center standards which is available? If we talk about across the globe, there are 4 data center standards I could recollect. So tier standard, which is de facto standard of uptime, TIA 942, BICSI 002, EN 50600. So these are 4 standards which is available, and it is very necessary to understand why we follow standard, why we need to follow standards. So why we need to follow standards or best practices is the probability of outcome or the probability of success increases by following certain standards because those has already been practiced and outcome has been achieved. So these 4 standards are available. It doesn't mean that a standard doesn't mean that the standard is certifiable. So for certifiable standard, you need to develop a certification process which ensures whatever each standards are actually objective are delivered. And I'm pleased and to say in this forum that tier standard or tier certification process is the only process in the world which gives you outcome based result or assurance, which assure you reliability and performance of your data center across the lifespan. So my friends talked about a couple of other standards which is related with the systems, ASHRAE and IEC and other those kind of standards, but these are more specific to the subsystems or the systems. Coming back to India, what standards which we have and what we are planning to do, I think we had been working with Mr. Dhaka on the IGBC part of it. So they had developed a guideline, or I don't know, they call it a standard as of now, where it was more aligned with efficiency of the building or the data center. But when you talk about a comprehensive standard for a data center, it is very, very necessary to understand all the aspects or the business objectives which is required for a data center. And what I believe is objective of a data center, the first comes the availability aspect of it. It has to, because it has to be made for available continuously. It has to be safe and secure. It has to be flexible enough to take care of the technological changes or advancement, whatever happens in future, because once you build the data center, the life of a data center is around 15 to 20 years. And this lifespan is very good, where you may have a lot of technological refreshes or changes, you should be able to adapt to it. Fourth is efficiency. And the fifth, I call it sustainability. So it is not necessary that whatever you build, how do you sustain the same, all those four objectives across the lifespan is the key, should be the key objective for any organization or data center operators to achieve. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very right. Thank you. Yes, and that neatly lead on to the next question I had, which was about training. And if we're subscribing to Mr. Singh's approach to sustainability, and we have to look at it over a 20-year lifespan, and people that are operating the facility need to be themselves very aware of what they're doing and how they're doing it. So my question is the training mostly on the job in India? Are there any formal qualifications? And if not, should there be? Should we be asking for people that are operating data centers to be professionally qualified to a specific data center qualification rather than a mechanical or electrical qualification? And Mr. Singh, please feel free to answer that. I know that you have quite a few Uptime Institute designers and operational specialists, that training courses that you give. So what's the penetration of those type of training qualifications in the Indian market?
Data center booming, growing, we are doubling the capacity, or we are becoming 1,000 megawatt in next 24 years. But Uptime has done a survey, a latest survey in 2020 we have recently released. And one of the points which we pointed out about the staffing or the people, competent people around data center industry. So what we found is there is a huge amount of shortage of skill power in data center industry, and more than 60% of organizations gave a feedback or responded back that they had challenge and issue in recruiting people. Around 23% of the people, they said retaining people is also another challenge in the industry because of this. And one thing which is very, very important, what I found is more than 35% of the data center people are aged population. And their maybe age is more than 35 years, 35 to. So what we are looking at is whenever the people are going to retire, there is no people to back up. So this is really high time to get the people or new young people introduced in this particular industry. They trained, they get aligned, and then they put it on the job to do their job, because that is another opportunity for also the people, other people as a part of this industry to take up this particular domain as a career, and then they can try their luck in that. So coming back to another point, what we found is on the gender balance, because we talk a lot about we need to have a gender balance in the organization, and if we talk about this particular data center industry, it is very low single digit number as far as the other gender part or the female part is concerned in this industry. So there is a huge amount of scope and improvements which is there in this to induce the larger people or more number of people industry to meet this particular demand. Now coming back, what are the trainings and the competency as a part of it? I have personally seen in this industry a lot of projects are suffering or struggling. Even meeting the objective was becoming one of the major challenge because of the competency of the people, competency of the partner, experience of the people. Because what I found is in the RFP itself, we are very, very plain and simple about putting the eligibility criteria and specific KPIs for evaluation of the contract and the specific bidders, which is also causing a major issue of you wanted X and you are getting Y vendor into the projects who is not capable of delivering it, and then you struggle to deliver the project. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. And Dr. Drucker, do you have a view? Is training included in the IGBC skilled part of the criteria for it? And if not, should it be?
Yeah, John, thank you for a very nice question. Actually, it is a problem everywhere, not only in like building sector, but it has huge problems like NK mentioned about it. So we have some requirements which is very specific to skill development or kind of training for all the data center professional. So for green data center point of view, we have one requirement called commissioning, and commissioning has role and very, very important for every type of equipment, not only data center but every installation. This commissioning for cooling, electrical, IT hardware, software will have different domain altogether. But I feel like this is a great difficulty for all the projects which are adopting green certification, because we don't allow all the commissioning agents those work for buildings and also do commissioning for data centers. We have requirement the commissioning agents should not be part of the design. Number two, he cannot be do commissioning until unless he has served for like 5 data center commissioning for electrical and cooling equipments. So in some of the data center, it was like it was kind of like great difficulty for data center owners. They approached IGBC like, who are the commissioning agents? Those are having commissioning for like more than 5 data centers. So I think we didn't find any good options, and hardly there are people, 2 or 3 commissioning agents, those worked with some of the data center, but not completely, because NK would definitely agree, Mr. Venkat and Mr. Loya would also agree. Is the complete sourcing for the energy, or how we put our data center in existence. If it is bad, obviously it will not have existence for like high operation or efficiency, but it is a great area for skill in India. And actually we are working with NSDC stands for National Skill Development Council. They want to introduce one particular section on data center skill or training program. So program has not yet decided, but we are working on that direction, and very soon there would be some skill development program for data center industry alone. What I felt, John, earlier data centers were like in few numbers, so never had like good attention with regard to commissioning or like training. But today we don't see like data center are in numbers; they are completely immersed in a new industry, and it has been now considered by government of India also. Like data center would be a booming industry for the country to have more businesses, more employment. So likewise, NK mentioned there's a huge requirement for skill development, but yes, IGBC is working on that front. There is another part for it. When we think about commissioning, it also need deep expertise in different domain. So there's a need to work like integrated commissioning, or a company who will handhold facilitate commissioning for different component from single sourcing. It should not happen like one is doing for cooling, one is doing for electrical, one is doing for like different domain or so. So until we have integrated approach, I think value cannot be added in the training, as well as that cannot transform the skill set for data centers. This is from my point of view for this skill development. Actually, we want to launch one program. I think we have put some roadmap for it, and under that roadmap, we will certify commissioning agent, and these will be different for buildings as well as for data centers. So we are working on that direction. Thank you, John.
Excellent. And let me know if you need any tutors or trainers, because I've been to India 3 times, and it's a great country. I'd like to I do training back in the UK as well. Right, Prakash, what's your view on training, and do you have your guys working with in your facility all certified up?
I am audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. John, you have very good questions. My opinion is that for reliable and efficient operation of the data center, you need a qualified person, at least 5, 6 years and 10 years of experience. And all large data center, they should look for the qualifications like shift engineer must have 10 years experience on IT service management, and safety people should have at least certifications and all this thing. Electrical technicians, chiller operator, BMS operator should have the experience and all this thing. As far as Reliance is concerned, what we do is we take the experienced qualified engineers, diploma holders and all these things. They have 5 to 6 years experience. Then every years we have a classroom type of training in which we call the OEMs, and they will train, refresh the things, do's and don't do's the thing. My thing is that by this type of training and all this thing, it is good that they will have the expertise in their particular field and all this thing. But the basic problem is that they don't have any experience and training on how the server is working, what is the server requirement, and what are the things which goes are the good for the reliable operation and all this thing. Like I'll give you one example from last 10, 15 years. We are seeing that when we are talking about the environment conditions, they say that in front of rack at about 3 feet above the floor level and in front of 1 feet of the rack and all this thing, temperature is to be measured. But in the rack, because of internal short cycling and all these things, servers is whatever the is there, which nobody is aware of this. User, whatever the server users are there, the owner is there, they says whenever the problem is coming of the high temperature alarm or anything, then they will immediately say my business is losing. You please lower down the temperature without knowing what is the real cause and all this thing, without knowing what is the reason and all this thing. They are operating in an inefficient way. So my thing is that even you are a chiller operator or you are a electrician and all this thing, you must know what is the basic server requirement, what are the conditions, and why we are not able to meet these conditions. Is there any problem at the operation and all this thing? Once we look into this thing, reliable operation will come and the efficiency will come automatically. This is my experience. We fine tune and given the proper training and understanding how the server is working and all these things, there is a large improvement in power consumption, PUE, that we have noticed within 1 year, 1.5 years. There is a large improvement has been possible. This is what my output is.
So what you're saying there is that sometimes you have to educate your customers.
No, we are educating our field operating engineers and this thing through the OEM. Like DG said, OEM is there, chiller OEM is there. So whatever the facility and whatever the vendors are there, they are coming in a year and give 3-4 days classroom training. What is to be done? What is don't and don't do it? What are the failure? How to improve the reliability? How to improve the operation? How to diagnose the things and all the things. This sort of training we are giving so that reliability and efficiency improves.
Okay. Do you feel that you also sometimes need to educate your customers though, in terms of SLAs on temperature, humidity, and operational parameters? Like, for instance,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you have remote hands capabilities within your facilities, or whether you allow your customers to come into your facilities and you have a cage type environment. And especially in Europe, we have a lot of cages, and some data center operators purely just provide power, space, and cooling and nothing else. And they allow external technicians to come in and install equipment. And I feel that a lot of their problems stem from the fact that guys that are coming in are not data center aware. So they're positioning servers in the wrong locations. They're not tidying up the cabling. They're not putting blanking panels in. In some cases, I've even seen servers installed the wrong way round, which is something that, you know, you need to educate these people when they come in, that they don't do these problems.
Yeah.
But anyway, Venturekam, what's your view from Schneider Electric on training and skills?
Yeah, pretty interesting subject. Sorry, Mr. Lohia, go ahead.
So sorry to interrupt you, Venkat. The thing is that whenever the customer are coming or people are coming, if they are not able to understand, then we will show the thermography and show what is the problem. And once they see the thermography and all this thing, they will immediately realize that there is a problem and they need to do something. Sorry for your interruptions.
No problems at all, Mr. Lohia. Any day for you. So, John, pretty interesting question, and three different perspectives from my side. Yeah. So, essentially, skill training is one, but as they say, common sense is the most uncommon feature in this area, but in this industry also it's prevalent. Let me go back in time. I was walking through a data center, and this IT manager was very curious. He said, "Okay, you seem to be knowing a bit of cooling. So how do tell me this?" He's put a pedestal fan in front of his Cisco 6400 switch, and and he was saying that I'm really troubled because my whole network goes down if the switch goes bad. And there is you can imagine there's a cooling grill right in front of the Cisco switch, and and he's put a pedestal fan there. So I just put my hand there, and the cooling, the air direction was exactly opposite of the switch location because the vanes of the grill were the other side. So I said that, can you get my tile puller? And then we inverted it, and suddenly the temperature on the switch started coming down. So this is what I want to substantiate by what Mr. Lohia was saying that skill and application, it's not on the job. They have to do the theoretical as well as the practical aspect. Now, coming back to what NK and Mr. Dhaka was saying, that I don't want to repeat what they said, that they did put together a summary saying that there is an urgent need and a dying need for the skill upgradation. So I want to call out here a very interesting initiative which Schneider Electric has taken. In fact, I have to thank Sumit Makija from STT GDC is very much on the CII panel. So he reached out to us, and I'm reaching out to various other data center companies as well, saying that while Dr. Dhaka, when all this is getting created, can we start catering to this in the industry? So what we decided, these two organizations, they'll take out the corporate social responsibility budget from both the organizations. We have our equipment. We don't want to be specific about our equipment. It can be any equipment. Now, they have provided a space in their Bangalore Whitefield data center. We are putting together the curriculum there, and we are saying that because we are catering to the data center industry. So why not start educating people? And as it was said by NK and Dr. Dhaka, that the manpower is becoming very critical. There is a huge rotation. The moment the guy gets a little smart, he wants to go for he or she wants to go for a different organization. So how do we get into this aspect? So we have taken this initiative. It's taken us a bit of time. It's a consortium of an educational institution, STT GDC and Schneider Electric coming together. It's taking shape, and we are very happy that it is taking shape, and we want to do more. And Schneider Electric would like to contribute from our. We take it as a corporate social responsibility aspect, and we want to cater to it. The third interesting aspect is that if you really want to, get the skills, industry surveys say 60 to 65% of the errors happening in live data centers is manual error. The guy has switched off something, and obviously, that confiding, saying that yes, I have made this mistake, cost him or her the job. So why would you, confide that, and why would you voluntarily say that? As a result, can we digitize? Can we have connected products? Can we have a platform wherein, as much as possible, try and avoid the manual error part of it? This is a different perspective altogether. You're asking for skill enhancement of the people. Now, thereby, the mundane job is taken away. Then the value addition job is there with the skilled people. And when he has the opportunity to value add, he or she becomes that much more credible in the whole thing. I've heard of stories in Australia that a power plant is run by 5 people. I'm not here to say that we should not deploy people. The rate at which the data centers are coming, the megawatts of we heard the previous participants, megawatts being deployed. I think this is. I don't think we have an alternative, because a number of points of checking and connections. You gone are those days. You can rotate a sling psychrometer and check a data center temperature. So therefore, we have to digitize while upskilling our people, and for that we have to create a framework, is what I'm trying to say, and automation is the key for that as well.
And I would tend to agree, but I'd also add that it's all very well installing all, but you need to teach people what it's telling you. I know from experience, there have been a number of DSIM solutions, and they clearly are pointing out a substantial major airflow error, but the technicians are not taught during the handover or the commissioning of that product. That is the problem. So they're looking at it and they're seeing alarms, but they don't actually know how to fix it. So I think you're right. You need to have people that understand the theory as well as the practical. And I think it's a great initiative that you're doing. And again, if you need anybody to come and do some training, I'm over there in a flash. Right. That's great. From what we've understood from our guests here is that there is a major shortage of skills in the Indian subcontinent. There is a problem with gender balance. There's not many young people coming into the industry, and it's going to end up being a huge problem. And we've learned from Dr. Drucker that they're going to include commissioning into the IGBC criteria, and that those commissioning agents should not be involved in the initial design process, which I think is really, really good, because the last thing you want is somebody marking his own homework. It does need to be done from outside of the thing. And that way, that's the only way you can learn. I mean, if you're marking your homework, you're not really proving anything. You need somebody external to come in and to look at it from that point of view. And this is what I find when I'm doing my assessments. I go into a site, I do an assessment, there's something that is plainly obvious that's a problem. And when you talk to the data center manager about it, it's almost as if he can't see the wood for the trees. He's too close to the problem. And it needs somebody external to cast that subjective and independent eye in order to resolve some of the problems. So that's good. I mean, I was going to talk about health and safety, but actually I'm going to jump forward. Actually, I'm not going to talk about health and safety because I've seen some of the things that go on in India. I don't really want to talk about it. But my last question is, artificial intelligence, automation, is this prevalent in India? And I think Mr. Singh just basically said that it's not, but it needs to be, and we need to get some more DSIM in. So, Mr. Singh, I know the Schneider Electric products infrastructure has a very good DSIM solution. Are your clients buying it, or are you including it as the package when you're providing the products into the facility?
Yeah, should I go, John?
So I would like to just go back in my previous question, because this is somewhere related. When we talk about sustainability or operational sustainability, it is not only the people who play the role. It is a complete part of, we call it people, process, or technology, or call it 4 Ps: people, partner, process, and products. So combination of all these 3 or 4 delivers the actual result. So if we only focus on people, if we only focus on technology, so operational aspect, which we are facing the most major issues in India, are more associated with people-centric operations. So there is no proper operational program which is built up. And we are just talking about few number of people. They are giving certain operational training or maintenance training and running the show. Because about data center operations, the real people who are running the show are the least qualified people, like technicians. So you need to develop a program which is more process driven instead of people driven. People know what needs to be done and accordingly they drive it. Now, coming back to the specific question we asked, technology, yes, it has got a major role in data center optimization or driving the overall efficiency and also the sustainability and availability also. Simple example is COVID. In this COVID-19 scenario, the real problem was accessibility of the people on site available. How are you going to run your data center? And that has really not in terms of deploying technology and keeping a balance between the people and technology and drive that so that your incidented or risk of outages are completely eliminated and you are able to also drive the operational efficiency. Now coming back to in India, so is not new in India. It has been there for ages. So we have building management system which is running even for smaller data centers, and we had DCIM for last 10-15 years, which is being. But what was there is for some time there was some issue of really getting the value of DCIM, the proper implementation of DCIM or configuration of the DCIM, due to which customer was not really getting the value. Now, when we did last year in 2019, what we found is 70% of the customers came back to us stating that their DCIM project had been successful. And this is something which is being taken, and most of the data operators they are building now or even going forward. DCIM is something they are, it is by default, they are taking it and moving ahead with.
Excellent. Okay, I was going to say, Venko, if you want to step in really because...
Yeah, last point is AI. So AI is the next step which built on the successful or maturity of the DCIM, and then we can see the real benefit of AI. That's all.
Okay, we've got 10 minutes left, so I'm going to bring in Venka now to answer my original question, and I apologise for pointing at Mr. Singh instead of yourself. So if you can talk about your Schneider Electric structureware product, whether or not it's a separate purchase or whether it's a part of the package that you provide to data centers in terms of the hot and cold containment and the rest of the
Sure.
infrastructure.
Sure. Now, what is measured is managed is the basic fundamental. So, therefore, any amount of PUE which we are talking about, until unless you measure every point, it's not going to be managed. And that is why, see, frankly, if you ask me specifically, am I wanting to sell DCIM? The answer is not so much. What is the customer looking at it? What is the customer's business looking at it? What is his billing, the way he is billing his customer? Is it per kilowatt or per rack? Is it space? It is. So it's purely the customer business model dependent. So I would say that to that extent, software and services becomes the superb, the icing and the cream and icing layer of the cake, and while the rest remains same. I agree with NK that DCIM well implemented is okay. But now look at it. The incoming substation to the medium voltage to the low voltage to the UPS and the downstream electrical, and similarly the chiller to the air handling unit and so on and so forth. Now you need a comprehensive system. You have a SCADA for the power distribution, you have a BMS, you have various systems. Now, if you have an overall supervisory layer which is able to customize dashboards for the customer, for him to measure and manage his business and the PNL, that's where it is. Now, thanks for prompting that EcoStruxure, and with the Aviva combination, that provides a platform. I'm sure all OEMs have some platforms or the other. We are trying to, for the hyperscalers and for the enterprise data centers, this is something which we are moving in a very, very fast track. Now, I know we have a short of time. The other thing which we are heavily implementing because of the artificial intelligence and machine learning, I would like to talk about what is called the cooling optimize, where, this is a concept. There's nothing proprietary about what Schneider is offering. What we are trying to do here is, Mr. Loya will appreciate that 45 to 50%, I would say that 40 to 45, sometimes 45 to 50% of the data center energy consumption is cooling. And that's the biggest debt, on the PUE. Now, we said that let's go hammer and tongs on this with artificial intelligence and machine learning. So what we are trying to do here is that we will put those sensors on the rack. collect it into an artificial intelligence box, connect it to, irrespective of which make of the air conditioner in the data center, and try and optimize, zone them, and say that try and reduce the cooling energy. So the moment you do this, then it becomes even more easier because you have hit the largest consumer there, and this does machine learning, and then the patterns emerge as long as the load is not changing by the week sort of a situation. Then there's a machine learning. So it moves in a very, very optimized way. So measurement and management and artificial intelligence clubbed together gives a superb package as far as automation is concerned.
And Dr. Drucker, so is there any requirement within the IGBC criteria that for monitoring and measurement?
Yeah. So thank you. Very good question, John. So from green certification point of view, we have a very much strict guideline for all the data centers. They need to capture hourly data or year and then submit to IGBC every after quarter, so that we are getting the right feedback from the data center which they mentioned during like rating system. Let us take one example. Many data center, they are designed for like low PUE, but when they start operation, the PUE would be much higher than what they have expected. So that is one requirement, and I hope except Venkat, everyone is much aware about our guideline for ECBC data center, where we have put key requirement based on the value proposition for metering and monitoring. So I think that will change the whole scenario in the industry, where we have put level 1, level 2, level 3, how metering monitoring should be done. And it is not like automation or metering monitoring, but if we are not getting any decision making from the data, then it is just lying in like CDs or like in the data bank, but there would be no use of it. I'm really thankful to Venkat. He mentioned very good point, like machines are made for automation, but we are not able to utilize they now to have whatever the automation in the machines, to use that, and also to have like automatic fault detection, diagnostic, and we should have like prognostic for the system, so that we may integrate this system with the ML as well as like artificial intelligence that will auto tune, because manually it is not able to optimize. Only machines can optimize the system. It cannot be done. I have one more. I have only one point. Like many colleagues, they mentioned about DCIM, but what I felt like it is not properly utilized, or it has not been understood from the end users. Until unless end user will demand, things will not move out. Thank you.
And I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. So, Mr. Lohia, do you have a DCIM in your facility, and have you made the same errors as some of the other panelists have mentioned? Are you using it effectively enough? And I'll need to press you on that, because I need to do a little wrap up. So if you could just tell us about your DCIM if you have one. I think you're on mute.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Mr. Venkat has given very good analysis, measure, analyze, and implement or do the improvement. This is what the total function is there. But unfortunately, thing is that people are putting BMS or whatever the data acquisition system in which they just collect the data. They don't analyze, they don't do the rectifications and improvement. And as Dr. Dhaka has said, they have given the systematic analysis and reporting system. Was the proper thing as per Mr. Venkat, and proper analysis and reporting as per Mr. Dhaka is being done, we are sure that we are going to get the improvement. This is what we are putting up at Reliance Geosite. We do monitor, measure, analyze, do the improvement, and keep the record. What is happening last year, same month, same thing. So this year, and how much improvement is there. We target that at least 5% improvement should be there every year on year, month on month basis. That is what the things are there, and a proper recording, analyze, and improvement is being implemented. This is what the key factor.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much. Right, so we've got 2 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is going to do a brief update of what we've covered today. So in terms of standards, I've got to say it looks pretty good because you are covering all of the data center standards that are available. So we have references to ASHRAE Technical Committee 9.9. We've got the IDBC criteria. We've obviously got the Uptime Tier Institutes. There's the Schneider Electric Performance Standard, which applies internally. Somebody mentioned TIA 942, although that is primarily a telecoms cabling standard. There is the Appendix A, which does cover data center operations. We found out that the average PUE in India was, this is from the IDBC certified, that the average is about 1.6 to 1.65, and that some data centers have got down to 1.35, which is, and I would 100%, that is a fantastic result in a what I would call high temperature, high humidity environment. Even some of the data centers in Singapore aren't getting to 1.35, so that's very good. And we had our first reference to EN 5600. Now I do want to talk about EN 5600 because this is the one that's going to kick, unfortunately, Uptime Institute into the long grass. Sorry to give you that, but EN 5600 has been accepted by ISO, and there is now a technical specification, 22237, and that is in what is known as a pre-consultation stage, and that will, in about 2 or 3 years' time, become the de facto global data center standard, supported by the ISO. We're looking at the certification elements of that as we speak. But as you can imagine, there has been some pushback from various entities. We've understood that there is a serious shortage of skills in the data center industry, and I think that applies globally. Actually, Europe is suffering from exactly the same thing. There is a gender imbalance. We've got no young people coming into the industry. The average age of a data center person in Europe is anywhere between 47 and 55. And judging from the events that I go to, most of them are pushing 55. And this will cause huge problems in the future. Spoke about commissioning and the need for it to be independent, which I think was very good. We had data skills being done by the Indian Skills and Development Council that Dr. Jarka told us about. We feel that most data center technicians need to be qualified at least to 5 to 6 years. They need to be IT management aware as well. Some organizations have a classroom where they bring the other equipment manufacturers in to give training updates. We spoke about the requirement for cross-training, and I think that's very prevalent. In the EU Code of Conduct for Data Centers Energy Efficiency, the very first best practice is group involvement, and it talks about bringing together on a regular basis of the facilities managers, the IT technicians, the business units, and the software guys, so that all aspects of data center operations are known about by all parties. We talked about fine-tuning facilities, and then we talked about skills and the lack of common sense, which I think is pretty good. We are a people-centric business. And then finally, we wrapped up with the IDBC, including the requirement for monitoring in their criteria, which again is an EU Code of Conduct best practice. We do it annually. You're doing it quarterly. My advice there was we don't get drowned in data. Yes. The other thing is that the EU Code of Conduct is pretty good. It has quite a few best practices, 150 plus best practices, and it covers management, IT equipment, cooling, power systems, and then finally monitoring and measurement. Some of those best practices are pretty good. The other thing is that it's actually now a technical report in the EN 5600 series, technical report 99-1, as is a technical report 99-2, which is sustainability aspects. So I think we've had a really good session. Thank you all for all the delegates and the participants for coming along. I've learned a lot. I'm sure that our delegates have learned a lot. And now I'm going to hand back to Prasanna to close the meeting and move on to the closing note. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
John, fantastic moderation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Prasanna, sir, you're on mute. You have to unmute yourself.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. Thanks, Rahul, for that. John and all the panelists, so quite enriching. And we have come to, so on behalf of CII Western Region team, has been a fruitful summit, obviously packed with intensive presentations. These interactions provided valuable insights on the opportunities and the challenges that we face to management fronts. It gives me utmost pleasure to conclude this conference in the presence today Data Center Blueprint Summit 2020 with its theme of building digital norms focused on strengthening India's position as a leading global data center. As we grapple with the challenge posed by COVID, should be looked upon as an opportunity, I say. With this thought, we for the following fundamentals, yet important building blocks for the DC industry. We try to address the pain points, discuss and strategize probable practical solutions. We will explore the way forward. Impart practices in this space, insights on edge network, infrastructure, technologies are going to shape the data center industry, and a vital discussion on operation or understanding on various aspects. We are aware imminent topic is insufficient and such summits or conferences further this cause. Now, I would like to thank state partners, Maharashtra, Government of Madhya Pradesh, MP State Electronics Development EDC Limited, Madhya Pradesh Agency for Promotion of our technical partner, Stelling & Wilson, our platinum partners, Global Data Centers India Private Limited, our co-partners, G. Schneider Electric, corporate contributor, Capital and Webworks. I once again express my sincere gratitude to all for your participation and your contributions to this summit. Looking forward to the CII Data Center Blueprint Summit. Thank you. Thanks a lot once again.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Good evening.
Good evening to all. Thank you, Venkat sir.
Thank you. Thank you.